Good start. It's a good start.
It's a great start.
Yeah, it's the first win.
But
that we can claim to be completely original, which excites me, which puts me in the zone of winning. I win here and I win there. Now what? Let's just do it. Let's meet this thing head on. And you were in it to win it. It's how you perceive it. Defeating the naysayers. You're either winning or you're losing. There's nothing in between.
Welcome to the Objective Secure podcast. My name's Mike.
Hi, I'm Emma.
This is episode 56, Winning Masters. Well, we got to go with Charlie Sheen for winning. Yeah, we definitely did.
Okay.
So we're going to be talking to the overall winner and the generalship winner for Masters 2019 in just a minute. Andrew and Jordan have joined us for what turned out to be quite a long interview.
There's a surprise.
So we're going to give you that to listen to in just a moment. But before we get stuck in, we're going to recap some of the experiences from Masters from our point of view. Tiny bit of news and whatnot, and then dive straight into the interview.
Yeah.
For those of you not playing along at home or haven't listened to the last episode.
Where have you been?
Well, there is that. We had our 5th annual Warhammer 40,000 Masters tournament on the 23rd and 24th of November 2019.
Okay, I've been calling it the OBSEC WA Masters, just to differentiate it between the Masters that are held everywhere else around Australia.
That is true. So, we had that. It's the 5th time we've run it. 2,000 points, 2 days, 6 games. It's the first of its kind in WA to be added to the ITC rankings, which I have to do that extract and submit very shortly.
Yes.
And we had 66 players registered and 60 complete the event. And
6 games, 2 days, 2,000 points.
Yep. And we talked about it at length in the history of the event in the last episode. So since the recording of that episode, we had a few hurdles to overcome, which if you came to the event, you'll know all about, but we might as well recap if you're playing along at home.
So I'm a bit worried. So we recorded the last podcast early, and I don't even know why we recorded it early. I think I had a busy week, and so I was like, okay, we need to get this podcast out of the way because I don't want to be pushing it to the last minute again. I've got all these things coming up. So you just thought that you would add another spanner to the works.
Yeah. So on the 15th of November, we went out as a family.
It was supposed to be 43 degrees. We were supposed to be going horse riding, and they sent us a message and said 43 degrees is too hot for the horses. 43 degrees is too hot for me. So I was fine with horse riding being cancelled and thought it would be a fantastic idea to go ice skating and keep cool.
So we grabbed the kids and we headed off to the local ice rink here in Western Australia. And when we got there, they gave us a free upgrade on the boots, and we got some really flash, swanky skating
Ice skates?
Boots, and I think mine were ice hockey boots like our sons, and then the girls got figure skating ones. The kids were going well. I finally got it all sorted. The kids were out on the ice. I made half a lap before my knee decided no.
Knee went one way, ankle went the other way. All of him hit the ice.
Yep. I had to get stretchered off the ice because I couldn't move my leg.
Apparently there were a few choice swear words that came out as you went down as well. Well, more likely as you hit the ice, I'd say.
I don't recall that, but the kids tell us reliably that my language for that particular day was questionable.
Yeah.
So that was a trip to hospital, and since then, obviously in the lead up to Masters, they gave me crutches and a big brace.
Leg brace.
And that meant Masters prep got a little bit hectic because we basically had the week leading up to Masters when normally I do all the heavy lifting and load the trailer and all that other sort of bits and pieces. And now all of a sudden I couldn't do any of that. And then on top of that, I would normally do the school runs, and Emma's suddenly having to do that as well. So she's had to take time off work to look after our kids that I couldn't do.
I had to take time off work to do school runs and then time off work to actually do the Masters prep.
Yeah. So the Masters prep lead up was not as easy as it could have been.
No.
We are very fortunate that we have a really great community in WA who a couple of the guys came out after work on Thursday. Jason helped us hitch the trailer on Thursday night, and then on the Friday night we had we had Evan and Ryan and Nat come out and help us load the trailer. That morning the night before on the Thursday, we'd actually made the kids bring in all the terrain and whatnot, so Emma and I could go through them on the Friday morning. And then I wasn't allowed to come down for setup on Saturday morning.
No.
Because you decided it would be too distracting.
Yes. You would have been too busy telling everyone what you did to your knee, and my room wouldn't have got set up.
So instead I wasn't there, and 40 minutes later it was done.
35. So we
did have probably 10 volunteers, would be my guess. 10 to 12.
I've been saying to people I didn't need a Hulk because I had an army, but nobody knows where that reference is from, so it just makes me smile. Anyway, so I'd said to Michael, like, there's nothing that I can't do. I can do all the heavy lifting. I can get the room set up by myself. I can get all the boards in. I can get the terrain in. I can do it all. Obviously, it's much easier if I do have help, but I can do it all. The one thing I can't do is I literally don't know how to reverse a trailer. I'd never driven with a trailer before, let alone tried to reverse it. So Mike said, that's okay. We'll put the call out and one of the players will be more than happy to help, I'm sure. So lots of them said they'd be more than happy to help. I got there at 5 to 6 and none of the amazing people who were out there at 5 to 6 and waiting for me, none of them knew how to reverse a trailer either. But it's okay because they're all strong, so they just pushed the trailer instead.
Yeah.
Unhitched it and pushed it, which was awesome.
So by the time I got there at 7:30, quarter to 8.
By the time people got there to help us at 6:30, it was finished.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
So we have to thank everyone who showed up early that morning to do all that for us.
Yeah.
And then the event started on about 5 minutes late because we were still missing some players.
Yeah, so we do try and work really hard to get our events to start on time and to stick to time. I'm probably a little bit more rigid about that than you are, but I am I think it's really important to be
We
good
did
with
stick to time day too.
We did, yes. And that's all on you, so well done. But we made allowances for a late start on day one because there was a truck rollover on one of the roads. And being stuck behind a truck on a road that's closed is beyond people's ability to, to prepare for that and to be able to foresee it. And so,
we also, it was only half an hour late at the end of the day. And because of the way we booked the hall, that wasn't a big deal either.
It wasn't, but I think that we need to be respectful of the fact that people are taking, it's a 10.5-hour day. People are taking 10.5 hours away from their family plus travel time.
Yeah.
So we need to be mindful of the fact that actually, sure, it was fine for us that we could run late because my parents were looking after our children and we'd got the hall booked until midnight. So it wasn't an issue for us that we were running late. But I think it's really important to be respectful of our players and know that
Maybe next time we just do 4 games on the first day and then 2 on the second day.
No.
No?
No.
Oh. I thought that was a good idea.
I'm not staying there for 14 hours.
Look, we can,
No.
do a marathon like an Ironman type event.
I'm out. I'm not made of iron. What's soft and squishy? I'm made of marshmallow.
Not going to comment any further on that comment. So 3 games on day 1. We did try and stream part of it on day 1 to discover my laptop's probably not the greatest machine in the world anymore. So that's going to be...
We've known that for about 5 years.
Well, it was okay at the first... the technology and what we do with it's changed in that period of time. So she still works, but not as great as it could be. So we're going to invest in a new one so we can get some more streaming happening because we did stream most of the games on Facebook to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully with the new machine and some of the new tech, it'll let us stream to Twitch and some of the other spots as well.
Yeah. And so we did stream parts of all of the games, depending on how kind technology was to us.
Yep.
Now, Game 5, we streamed Game 5, which you'll be able to find if you go to the Facebook page, because I believe it was titled with Game 5.
Yep.
But Game 5 also had the added bonus game streamed at the end of it as part of that as well.
Yeah, we did sneak in. Ryan and Anthony had finished their Game 5, and we'd set up a scratch match between 2 of our players who, unfortunately, were never likely to play just due to the nature of their own weekends, but they were two armies that we wanted to see on the table together, which was Steve with his Warhound and Alex with his Stomper double Giant Squiggoth. So we got some photos of that. You can find those on the Facebook page as well. Mm-hmm. And they played a scratch match. 20 minutes, 2,000 points, 20 minutes, done. And it would have been shorter if Alex had actually played without the intent and the spirit behind it, where he actually attempted charges instead of just shooting.
Yeah, it was a fun game, and I think that both players in question seemed to have fun playing it, but it also attracted quite a bit of attention from the other players in the room as well.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, we got 7 games, I suppose, for your viewing pleasure on the Facebook page.
That's not true. We've got 2 games
4
for your
and a bit.
viewing pleasure, and 3 games for your viewing pleasure, and 4 that are pixelated, break up, and are really quite terrible.
Yeah. You know what? We did our best with the resources and the time. It didn't help that we couldn't set the camera up right because my inability to move.
Be a productive part of our unit.
Yeah. So day 1 done and dusted, about half an hour behind. Day 2 started on time and finished on time.
Yay. So with day 2, one of the things that I love is the number of people who not only help contribute to packing up, but the number of people who stay behind for the award ceremony, even though there's absolutely no chance at all that they're going to be winning an award. So there was a younger player who was there, and his mum had come to pick him up, and she's like, "Come on, let's go, get your stuff." And he said, "No, I can't come. The ceremony hasn't happened yet." And so she was like, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, no, I need to wait, and I need to be here to congratulate the winners." And I thought that was actually really lovely that, so he's a teenager, obviously, and teenagers quite often get a bad name for being self-absorbed and that kind of thing. But it was a really lovely thing for me to hear, was him saying, "No, it's important for me to be here, to be part of the celebration. I'm not only staying because I'm going to win something, I'm staying so that I'm able to acknowledge the people who have done really well today, or who got a wooden spoon award," which we've renamed our encouragement award, the granite dice.
Yeah, which you've heard us talk about before on previous episodes. Mm-hmm. So
you've probably heard us talk a lot of this stuff on previous episodes.
No, that's true. So the weekend has come and gone. We have had the winners announced. Mm-hmm. You can head on to Down Under Pairings and check out all the winners. The overall winners, top 3, we had Jordan Beresford in third, Lockie Rigg in second, and Andrew Horton in first. Mm-hmm. The reverse order for that was generalship, with Jordan being the only one undefeated, 6 for 6 for the weekend. Mm-hmm. Both Lockie and Andrew going 5 and 1, along with 2 other players. There were actually 5 people on 5 and 1. Mm-hmm. However, on count back, Lockie was second and Andrew was third. So, we were very, very fortunate. We had a nice clear winner with no countback, essentially. Mm. Only by 1 point, though. Very close at the very end there, between first and second for overall. So, very, very full-on day. Very full-on 2 days, I suppose.
Yeah.
We've still got to organise the plaque for the Perpetual Trophy, and then make a couple of quick changes to the trophy as well, because it isn't exactly what I'd hoped it would be. Mm. And then we're going to hopefully have it out in one of the Warhammer stores. We'll grab a photo of that when we put it out there.
Mm. I'm really struggling with calling the stores Warhammer stores.
Instead of Games Workshop?
Yeah. Still keep calling them Games Workshop, so I'm sorry.
In the lead up to the event, we also had Games Workshop do what they've done to me every other friggin' year and release something.
They've done it just to upset you.
I'm sure they have.
Yeah.
The first year we learned from, because we had the Tau Codex drop in 7th edition. It was after lists were due, but lists were due like 4 weeks out or something. So
lists were due a long time in advance for that one.
And I think that was partly because of the way the format was and so on. But then they... So we ended up allowing that. And then over the years, we've had White Dwarf releases and we've had Codexes released, in the lead up to the event, which has caused some consternation for me a couple of times now. Yeah. And this year I thought I'd beaten them because I timed it so the lists were due on a Wednesday. White Dwarf doesn't come out on a Wednesday. The Codexes come out on a Saturday. Like, I'd even picked a date that was before the White Dwarf release in an effort to try and dodge all of those issues.
And, in all fairness, that happened. We did,
did.
we set the cutoff date to be the Wednesday before, so 10 days before
Yep.
the event, because that way anything that dropped after that date would not be
Yep.
applicable to the event.
And we did dodge the Inquisition release, which was that Saturday.
Yeah, it's just that the issue was that then there was a release in those 10 days, and despite the fact that we'd published it in the players pack that anything that came out after lists were due would not be applicable and would not be applied, there was still, I guess, some pressure to actually apply those FAQ changes.
Yeah, so we're talking about the release of the Salamanders and Imperial Fists FAQs.
And Salamanders wasn't an issue because thankfully nobody'd taken them.
No, thank God, because that would have actually caused more issue because I feel like those FAQs needed to be applied to make them fair and balanced. The Salamanders aside, the Imperial Fists one, we had 4 players with Imperial Fists.
Yep.
And 1 playing Crimson Fists. And the main controversy stemmed from the Vigilus Defiant rules in regards to seismic devastation and the relics and the Warlord trait.
Yep.
In the end, we stuck to what we'd written in the players pack and said, no, we're not going to apply the FAQ. So the Imperial Fists did get their awesome Warlord trait, awesome stratagem, unmodified.
Yeah.
And
in the end, it came down, the decision, it was a long, tough debate, but the decision came down to the fact that we had published it in the players pack that anything that came after this date wouldn't be applied.
Yeah.
So really, when it came down to it, that was the deciding factor.
I suppose the only reason it's out, like the conversation even took place though, is what was best for the event might not have necessarily been living and dying by that, like living and dying on that hill. So in the end, it's all kind of worked out for the best. The winner for Generalship Jordan did actually have Imperial Fists in his army, but didn't actually use the Warlord trait or the relic or the formation to begin with. So
was it an issue?
that was good. And then Andrew was playing Harlequins with the Incarn. So again,
Definitely wasn't
not an issue. So that all worked out pretty well. It did cause 24 hours of consternation because it was, what do we do with this? And often, like I made not the mistake, but I made the point of sharing my thought processes and some of the stuff that was going on in the background, and people took that as us asking what people wanted us to do.
The last line when you shared that said, "What are your thoughts on this?"
But it was, what are your thoughts on my thought process, not...
But you didn't say that.
Yeah, I know, and that was my fault.
And when I read it that you were asking for players' input.
No.
And while that might not have been your intention, that's how I read it as well.
And that's why I'm mentioning it now, is that those decisions should never be given to the players.
It can't be.
I was more interested in, like... I wanted someone to essentially look at my thought process and go, have I missed something?
Yeah, there's a hole in your thought process here. Or
not necessarily asking for someone to say yes or no, this is what you should do. But I didn't make that clear, so that's on me.
Yeah. And so one of the reasons, Mark just said that decision should never go to the players. Now, the reason that we don't think that should go to speaking for both of us, the reason that I don't think that should go for the players, we talk a lot about the need for transparency and the need for people to know what we're doing and why we're doing it, and for the community to have input on the decisions we make.
Which is why I posted what I did.
But ultimately, when an event happens, we have to be the people to make an informed decision. So how we come to that informed decision is through community consultation, if appropriate, and through reading different things. And community consultation can be local community or it can be international, interstate, that kind of thing. But the reason we don't ask for player input is because what happens is invariably you're going to get X percentage of people who say, yes, those changes should be implemented, and X percentage that say, no, they shouldn't be implemented. And if we then choose one over the other, which we have to do, it means half the room is upset that their opinion wasn't listened to, or they don't feel that was validated. And that's not a position to be in. And it's something that we talk to new TOs about a lot, is you cannot have every decision open to community input.
No, you just have to make a call and stick to it.
And sometimes we make the wrong call.
Yep, absolutely.
But we have to stick to it. And we own it and we say, yep, you know what? That wasn't the right decision to make. But once that decision's made, it's made. We don't go back on it.
Yeah. And like I was thinking about the way the painting, judging and stuff was done this year. I think the judging side of it was fine, but I think we should have done the beauty pageant on day 2. And we should have put it up on the stage so that everyone got to see the ones...
Apart from you. because you can't get up on the stage.
Yeah, but they can put their own armies up there.
No, you wouldn't have been able to get up there to have a look.
But, getting them all in the same spot, in the same air, we did it last year and a couple of years prior, was sort of picking the top 10 or the top 12 from the scoring.
Yeah, we did.
And I think that would have given us an opportunity so that you got to see all of those and pick from the best of the best.
I actually think that we need longer to do that. So one of the issues that we have is when, this event, it was me running around trying to chase up the players who hadn't voted. They literally hadn't actually seen those armies.
Yeah.
So they're trying to vote when they haven't seen the scope of armies in the room because we only had half an hour for lunch.
Well, this is a neat segue into what we were talking about prior to recording this, was looking at the time for the rounds, because we had 3-hour rounds for this event.
Yeah.
And pretty much everyone finished.
Yeah.
So, we get an opportunity post-event to kind of say what worked and what didn't work. And part of that process is obviously looking at the different reports and the different numbers and how long people took. In general, we had most players finish games at 3 hours. Plenty with time to spare. Averages in the room ranged from
an hour and 5 minutes.
Hour and 10.
Yeah.
I think there was only one player who averaged 3 hours and 1 minute. Everyone else was under the 3-hour mark.
And that 3 hours and 1 minute. So we did have some players who took 3 hours and 10 minutes, 3 hours and 15 minutes. It starts from when we start the round to when those scores are submitted.
Yeah.
So while we do try and encourage players to put those scores in as soon as physically or practically possible, often at the end of the game, people are chatting and they pack up their army. And when we were doing it with paper scores, it was really a lot more important that they got those paper scores to us before they did anything around packing up their army. It's not such a big deal anymore if they take an extra couple of minutes while they're packing up before they push their scores in. But pushing them in as soon as possible does give us a better understanding around how long your games are actually taking, which allows us to make a more informed decision around how long the games need to go for.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you actually look at what went on in terms of games played, we had 354 games played, which doesn't sound right, but I think it must be. No, it's not right. No, that's not right. It's got to be halved, because that's...
Yes, half that.
Yeah, because that's 2 players per round.
Yeah.
Because we had 6 rounds, 60 players, so 30, so 180 games.
Plus, because we did have a few more on day one.
Yeah. The average player got 5 turns. Mm-hmm. And when they didn't complete, they got 4 turns.
Okay.
Just shy of 4 turns. The reason that it's a bit of an anomaly, though, is the Adeptus Titanicus army, Steve's Warhound, only averaged 1.8 turns. So that kind of throws the numbers out a little bit, because most of them are...
He did finish all of his games, though.
Well, yeah, he just got tabled 5 of the 6 of them. The player who was playing Custodes finished 10 of his 12 games. He had an 83% completion rate.
How did he finish 10 of his 12? He only played 6.
There were 2 people playing Custodes. So there were 2, and this is what I'm like. So there's 12 games in total featuring Custodes.
You said the player playing Custodes finished 10 of his 12 games. I'm like, one guy did not do 10 of 12.
No, so there were 2 players with Custodes. They finished 83% of their games. The players playing who had Questoris Knights finished 78% of their games. And down at the bottom end...
that with the Custodes, is that one player...
That's 2 players.
Yeah, no, it's 2 players. Did one player finish all of his games and 2 players finished... and one player finished 4 of the 6?
I'd have to go and look.
Okay. I just wondered if it could show you that.
No, this is just broad summaries at the moment.
Okay, but it is an average, so it could be that.
On average, though, the room had a 60% natural completion rate. Now, for this event, natural completion was 6 turns.
Okay.
So... because we fixed the turn limit, we said we guaranteed turn 6 and there would be no turn 7.
Yeah.
So there were players who were marking did not finish on when they finished turn 5.
Yeah.
Because they should have finished. They should have had another turn. But when they did finish, the average turns was 5.1. So by and large, the 3 hours seemed like enough.
Yeah. And there was still a significant number of people going at the end of that 3-hour time limit.
Yeah, I mean...
So although there were some players who were finishing in an hour and a half, 2 hours, there was still a large portion of that room that was still playing towards that 3-hour mark.
Yeah, we definitely always had a situation where you'd have a bunch of results come in between the 1 and 2 hour mark, normally 5 to 10 games, and then we'd have nothing, and then from 2:30 to 3 hours, we'd just have them one after another, and then we'd get to sort of the 10 minutes out, and there'd still be 10 games outstanding out of the 30.
Yeah.
So it just meant that we had to be proactive in managing those players, but I think we've kind of hit a sweet spot where 3 hours is plenty. Bringing that down to 2 hours 50 or 2 hours 45 would enable us to expand the lunch break and expand the afternoon break.
And allow more time for the...
doing some of the other stuff, yeah.
Yeah, the beauty parade, as
But
you
I think-
called it, a beauty pageant.
But I think all that ties into changing some of the pre-game sequence to, cut some of that, the lag time out in terms of picking warlord traits and picking relics and that sort of stuff.
Which was a conversation that we had during one of the games on the weekend, yeah.
So I think that's probably a whole nother episode for us to talk about another day.
We've got a few in the pipeline.
Yeah.
So anything else in news?
Phoenix Rising finally had their FAQ release on the 26th. They agreed with me on the Witchblade, Witch Strike, whatever the one that gives you +2 damage in combat, so it only affects...
Again, I don't think that was anything to do with your opinion.
I do.
Okay.
They also fixed experimental creations, I think was the Drakari.
If anybody asks, I think your self-confidence is just fine.
Because I think it was experimental creations, was giving you a bonus for poison weapons, which meant it worked with vehicles for some of the Drakari vehicles where clearly it wasn't meant to. So they FAQ'd and fixed that.
Yeah.
The third one, though, which was the psychic power that didn't work.
Yeah.
They fixed it, but they fixed it completely differently to how I thought they'd fix it.
Oh.
So the original writing was until the end of this phase, as in the phase you're casting the power, add 2 to your deny rolls.
Whereas
I assumed that would be to
the
start of your next psychic phase, which would obviously encompass your opponents, which would be fine.
Which is when you use it.
Yeah. Instead, they've come out today and said, oh, no. It's going to be during this phase, get +2 to your own casting. So
it's nothing like
it's
what
been
the
completely
rule
reworded.
Yeah,
Instead of it being a benefit for you to stop your opponent, it's now a benefit for you to cast.
Interesting.
Now, arguably, that's so much better because now you can stack that with things like Smite, where you want to, if you can break an 11 on 2d6, you get Super Smite.
Yep.
So now if you get someone like Eldrad, who already gets +1 to cast it, you then cast this power on him, which gives him another +2. So now if he rolls an 8 on 2 dice, he now gets an 11, which gives him Super Smite.
The Super Smite, yeah.
So I think the deny would have been a much more interesting use of the power because it gives you something that you can use to interact with your opponent's turn. And it would have made... It's a really simple wording fix. So I don't understand why it was a massive backflip in that regard.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
It's not the first backflip we've seen.
No, that's true. But yeah, that was probably the only other thing. Oh, before we go into the interviews, we should thank our sponsors for Masters.
Oh, I have a list because I was definitely going to do this. So yes, we do have to thank our sponsors because they do obviously give us the opportunity to be able to offer prizes and to increase
some really cool stuff.
Prize base. So we've got a few different. We've got a few different people to thank, I guess. First one would be Toy Soldier Cartel. And I am starting with them because I forgot to thank them at the actual event. Now, Toy Soldier Cartel have been a huge supporter of all of the Objective Secured events in that they loan us terrain for each and every one of them.
Yep.
So, huge thank you to them because they supplied 5 tables worth of terrain.
They did. Which
meant that it was 5 tables less that we had to get there, which is fantastic because I have no idea how I would have managed that. But it's also, it was beautiful terrain and thank you very much to them. They've also been there for every single one of our events to help set up and pack up. Yeah. So we really do have to say thank you because we can't do it without you. And so for all the people who come down and help set up and pack up, I have heard arguments from a very, very, very small percentage of players. Why should I have to help set up and pack up? I've paid to come here. Yep. And if we charged an amount that included the amount of time that we would need to set up and pack up by ourselves, the ticket price would be absolutely through the roof.
Yeah.
We do rely on all of the community chipping in, and Toy Soldier Cartel have loaned us terrain, and they've been there for each of our events for the 2019 event calendar and in the past as well. And we can't do it without those people who do turn up and help.
Yep, absolutely.
Next up, also there to help us set up and pack up for events, and this year was the first year that they've sponsored a prize, the Tabletop Mafia.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that was the prize they sponsored was the Silver Servo Skull.
Yep.
And that went to...
Ryan Buck.
Yes, I know it went to Ryan Buck. I was trying to remember what it went to him for.
It was I think they gave it for the centerpiece models.
Ah, that's right, yes. Yeah. Then we had a prize donated by a relatively new team.
Yep.
Yes, hobby team in the community, Snake Eyes Squad.
Which a couple of episodes ago we had some time out with them while I was out
you went
playing.
down to have a play with some toy soldiers. So they donated 2 prizes, and they were for
Best themed armies.
Mm-hmm. And I am not going to pronounce his surname right. Adam LaGreca and Eric Tritt.
Yep.
And Eric was so excited about getting that, he's actually going to paint his gold and keep it as a trophy.
Which is ironic because it was Castellan Crow, the Grey Knight Purifier champion, and Eric was played demons the whole weekend.
We have to say thank you to OTP. Now, OTP sponsored us at the start of the year with a table worth of terrain that most people, if you've been to one of our events, you will have played on the
Necron board. And we're working on some more stuff with them going forward.
And we had some scatter terrain from them as well that we were able to use for some of the prizes for the event. Thank you very much to
Emma and Dan.
Oh my goodness, can I get my words out? No, I can't. I'm really struggling. Thanks very much to Emma and Dan from OTP for your continuing support. We had some vouchers and an airbrush donated from Hobbytech Toys. They're out in Myrie and have a fantastic range of hobby.
Well, basically, it's everything hobby supply-wise. It's not focused on miniatures so much, but if you need paints, brushes, weathering powders, you name it. If you need it to build and paint something, you can get it from them. They also have a selection of Games Workshop stuff as well. And I noticed last time I was there, they've actually got stuff that isn't normally carried on the shelves at most stores. So it's not always there, but it does mean if you're after a specific kit and you can't get it from your local, if you head down there, you might have a shot. Give them a call first or check out their website. Yeah. But very much appreciated.
As I said, they donated a really beautiful airbrush, which was for one of our prizes. Andrew took that home. Although he's never used an airbrush before. No,
it was a really good airbrush, though, an H&S Evolution. It was one that you couldn't buy. It was actually a special edition one that was given to Hobbytech, and they've kindly donated it to us to give away.
Yeah, so they donated that and then some vouchers as well. A-case.
Yep.
Donated an A-case.
Yep.
So
he was very pleased. I said there was one of the guys in the room had an A-case, a big A-case, in bright orange to match his army.
Oh, beautiful.
So I grabbed a couple of photos with the army in it and then posted them on the A-case Facebook page for Olo to see.
Awesome.
So they have made it all the way to Perth.
Yep, definitely. And Ashton Academy, they have, Christmas under the big top. So they're doing markets and circus performances out at Maddington.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that we know about this is because my dad, who does a bar and kitchen, he's going to have his Fairy Floss and Slushy stall out at the big top. So because of that, we were able to chat with them, and they gave us some free tickets that went out as prizes as well. Did I miss any sponsors? If I did, I'm so embarrassed.
I don't think so. I'm not sure now. We have to thank Games Workshop for supplying the chainsword.
Mm-hmm.
There was one left over from show, and this was a great way to get it out into the community and a nice big event. I think that's all of them.
I really hope that's all of them.
I mean, we always try and we have so much paraphernalia here from different people that we make sure that we try and give as much away as we possibly can for every event. So
share the love for as much.
There were some extra bits and pieces that went in there, like there was an A-case paint roll that went to the winner for painting.
Yeah.
There were a couple of tubs of different lichen and stuff that went out. There was some SMS paints that went out.
Yeah.
So yeah, we always try and give away as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, and also want to say thank you to Richard, who brings terrain for each of our events for us to use as well. And as I said before, everyone who comes down to help set up and pack up throughout the entire 2019 event calendar, thank you. Literally can't do it without you. Well, we could, but I'd be really broken and really, really cranky.
Well, we probably need to do it once or twice.
Yeah, instead of 10 to
12 times a year.
Anyway. Last bit of news, we've got Varsity out on the 9th of December.
Yep. I'm just trying to make sure you can hear this before then. I think you are, maybe.
Okay. Actually.
Yes, you will. It'll be happening. This will come out on the 4th of December, and then we're out on the 9th.
Following Monday. Yeah. So Varsity on the 9th, and that is speed dating gaming night.
Yeah, Codex speed dating. I've been asked to make sure we use that Codex speed dating rather than speed dating gaming, because then it makes it sound like it's actually speed dating.
Okay.
We had a couple of gamers very excited about that for a moment, and then when we explained what it was, they went, "Oh, I thought we were going to meet gamer girls."
Good luck. I can't find them.
So yeah, come out and have a drink or two and have some games with us at Varsity, and that's kind of our end of year wrap up for 2019. Hopefully by the time this airs, a lot of the tickets for 2020 will be up for sale as well on the website. But in the meantime, why don't we call it a day, or call it a quick break?
Yep. Shoot on over for our interview.
We'll leave you with the interview with Jordan and Andrew.
Yep.
And then we'll after the interview, we'll be back to wrap up. All right, so we're now into the main topic for today's episode. We're joined by Jordan and Andrew, the winner of Masters 2019 and the generalship winner for Masters 2019. How you going, guys?
Good, how are you?
Awesome.
Yeah, pretty good, mate.
Thank you very much for joining us. Rather impromptuly, I guess. We hit you guys up a few days ago just after the wins, and we've been fortunate to tee this up quite quickly, which is great. The event's still fresh in our minds, and hopefully it is in yours.
Yeah, so Andrew took out best overall, and Jordan took out best general. So before we do kind of get started with questions and whatnot, Andrew, did you just want to tell us a little bit about who you are in the gaming kind of part of your world?
So I have been playing 40k for quite a while, but I suppose more immediately I've been part of pretty heavy in the 40k scene in WA. I've been on the ATC team in 2017 and 2018. My squad of guys, the Phil's Badminton, won the WATC team championship this year that I captained. But I also work for Games Workshop Morley, so I suppose a lot of people around Perth do know me. If they play Warhammer, I guess.
It does mean you're somewhat surrounded by this hobby as part of your everyday life, with working in it.
Yeah, I do it.
Yeah,
I do it a fair bit.
And Jordan, what about you? Who are you within the gaming part of your world?
He's a nobody.
Oh my! Oh, geez. Yeah, that's a question. I mean, I played 40k when I was younger, and then took a break. I think at the end of like 5th or so.
Were you about 17?
Got back in. No, 5th, 4th, maybe a bit younger.
Okay.
And then I recently got back in end of 7th, start of 8th. So that was me. I've kind of been going more and more competitive. I was on the Phil's Badman team for WATC as well. I got to say, Andrew's a great captain.
You got to say it if you want to be on the team next year.
Yeah.
I remember the wide-eyed 23-year-old coming into my store, and I thought, here we go.
23? I would have been young
at the time.
Surely
you're
young. 23.
You're pretty young.
22.
That makes all the difference.
I'm like twice that. Jesus Christ.
You are not twice that.
Nearly.
We've been mates for a little while now, so it's good.
Well, I still remember Jordan at Masters last year with his bright orange Space Marines, and they were Assault Centurions then as well, I note, which we'll talk about his list for this year's event in a second.
Mm-hmm.
But I still remember a few guys coming up going, who's the dude with the bright orange Marines, and how is he on the top tables? And I've gone, he's doing well. Let's see where he ends up. And he didn't quite make it over the line last year. I think you went 5-1 last year, or was it 4-2?
I think it was 4-2.
But then this year, you've just kind of stormed your way forwards and just gone 6 for 6, which was pretty impressive to watch. Particularly the watching that last game was really quite entertaining and quite a showcase of both you and your opponent, Tom White, who's a previous winner of the event. Both of you played really well on that, and if you want to go and check that out, you can go and check it out on the Facebook page. We've got a video there for it. We should probably quickly talk about the lists, though, because we have got a little bit of publicity for both of your lists happening around the world at the moment. So why don't we start with Andrew? Andrew took out best overall. He did go 5-1. He only dropped one game. Who was that game to, Andrew, just out of interest?
That was to Mitch Burns'
Astra
Militarum list.
Yeah. So
I still got third generalship. So
you did.
It's not like I was
no,
exactly
exactly.
down in the ranks.
No, and so
and that
what's
was
quite funny is that, so Andrew, you got third generalship and first for overall. Jordan got first for generalship and third for overall.
Yeah.
So you just kind of interchanged your places there with both of those. So both of you right up there for generalship and for overall.
Yeah, it also
a solid weekend for both of you.
And I should also point out that when you actually look at obviously Jordan was the only player to go 6 for 6, so that's the reason he won generalship, because we do it on round points essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And then on count back, it's back to battle points, which is how Andrew picked up his third place for generalship.
Yep.
Overall wise, Andrew only beat Jordan, I think it was by 6 points or 8 points off the top of my head. It wasn't much. And
it was a tight race.
You know, it wasn't a foregone conclusion. And when Jordan won game 6, I thought, well, that's that in the bag. But then obviously Andrew had a really good round 6 as well, and snuck it in over the line by a handful of points.
Just out of interest, it's unlike me to go off script, I know. Do you know how many battle points Jordan and Andrew both got?
I can, but
Jordan got 116
he only dropped
points,
4.
So I got 97.
Wow.
And so overall, I got 150 and Jordan got 142.
Yeah, I thought it was either 6 or 8. I couldn't remember which.
Wow, that's pretty darn amazing.
Yeah. Oh, look,
a good painter, turns out.
Look, only dropping 4 points for battle is pretty impressive as well.
And the reason that I ask that is because there's been debate and discussion over the years that we've been running events on whether or not we should be looking at round points or battle points for the generalship and for overall. And so it's interesting to see that actually it didn't matter whether we were looking at round points or battle points. Jordan was taking it out anyway.
Yeah.
Yep. So.
I think the round points was really good. I know that's how ITC is run a lot. But yeah, it feels good that the overall winner was the guy that won, like the only guy that won all 6 games.
Yeah.
That feels very, deserved.
Yeah, that's it.
That's good on Jordan. But
it'd be weird winning every game and then
not winning.
Someone who got some, like 6, 11, 9s or something. Like
yeah,
that.
and that's certainly something we saw in past editions where before we implemented this change, which I think started in 2017.
Quite possible.
We had players going 4-2 and then winning generalship because they had 4 20-0s and then like 2 11-9 losses.
Yeah.
And then you had people who were going 5-1 or 6-0, but only scoring 11 or 12 point wins, and then ending up with lower battle points. And after 2 years of run, I think it was 2017, we changed it because we kind of went, that doesn't make a great deal of sense.
It does in one way and doesn't in another.
Yeah.
So
this way we're rewarding the people who play the games, not who win the games, not by how many points you win them by. And obviously that just becomes count back.
It's pretty cool. Comparing it to team events where kind of you can serve every point because your individual game doesn't matter as much as how your team goes. Where it's like, so a couple of those games, like, it paid off that there's 2 ways to kind of play a list. Like, it's an all-in kind of list, and it was like, oh, if I don't get this round score, then it won't matter if I lose only 11, less. It's like I have to do something to try and win.
Yeah.
Like that's fun to be able to do.
Well, it lets you take risks knowing that it's on you what your result is going to be, rather than, like you say, with a team where you don't necessarily want to take risks in every opportunity.
Yeah, but also I guess if you are looking at battle points, you are potentially going to play more conservatively to try and get as many battle points as opposed to, well, it doesn't matter if you inch or a mile type thing, so long as you win. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, and I mean that's highlighted.
Sounds good out of context.
Yeah.
Win at all costs. No, but it does mean you go for the win when it's like for the win. It's like you take that risk, and that's where Warhammer gets like super exciting, I think. So.
Well, let's jump back because we did get off.
I like that.
We did get off tangent there. Let's have a quick chat about your list, Andrew, because I know that there's been a few people very keen to discuss your list because first of all, it was Harlequins. So I was very pleased with that. You also, I noticed on one of the posts I saw on Reddit, people very interested. They were giving you props and a little bit of shit for naming all of your characters and units and stuff as well.
I like that we started this before we started recording, asking people not to swear.
That's a PG swear. That's fine.
Right.
That doesn't get flagged by iTunes. That's not a problem. So
naming the lists was all the names were from the like Eldari side of the Phoenix Rising book. It's pretty cool that the new book's kind of it makes it easy and it's kind of fluffy. The name the Flethel was kind of funny, because it's meant to, the second A, like the A in it, is meant to have an accent over it, so it's like meant to be an Eldari word, but when you put it in down under pairings, it's just
it doesn't let you do that.
Find the accent, so it's just Flethel. I guess I found that amusing. Anyway.
I think several people did.
And asking how the Flethel went, or if people were concerned one unit picked it out or anything, and not many people did. So. I think it was kind of MVP there, you reckon?
Well,
dude, everything played well. No, the main part with the list, I think I read on Reddit that it was all Soaring Spite. I think I noted it right at the top.
Yeah,
it's just off the bat, all battalions were.
I've got it listed here completely fine, and even when you go down to the battalions, I'm looking at Down Under Pairings now, which you can still go and check out the lists if you want to. They're listed as Soaring Spite. Although the second one does say Serpent's Brood, which is I think where the confusion comes from.
Yeah. Okay. Serpent's Brood is the special ability of Soaring Spite. That's probably me writing the list into Down Under Pairings.
I knew what you meant. It's fine.
Last minute. So yeah, all good.
So
it's probably because the Incarn was in that detachment as well. So they might have thought it was like a name of a Yannari detachment or something. But anyway, it's all Soaring Spite. So you want me to discuss the list?
Yeah, look, let's just run over it quickly. So it was a double battalion?
Double battalion. There's 4 characters, so 2 troop masters, a Shadow Seer, and the Incarn. 1 jet bike unit of 6. So the with Zephyr Glaives and Haywire Blasters, and then 5 rinse and repeat Starweaver transports. Basically, the list ran for the 3 units of 6 in the transports and the 2 units of 5 with fusion were in the transport, each with a troop master.
Yep.
And then there was a 5-man unit for the battalion that just held backline objectives. Just in there to complete the battalion.
The 65-point cheapos.
Yeah. The boys.
The backline.
Dude, they held backline every game.
Well, that's it. I mean, they don't do anything, and their 4-up invul makes them a little bit awkward to move for some units and whatnot.
Yeah, for Thunderfire cannons.
I was going to say, you face many Thunderfire cannons.
Oh, well, it worked when I did. And Basilisks was the main one it actually stopped, because I burst guard like twice.
Yeah, but who takes Basilisks, really?
Oh, God.
Turns out a 4-up invul's pretty good against Neg 3, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I noticed you actually followed the instructions as well for our players pack, which was lovely, because you do have your default trait, your default relic, and your default psychic powers all listed. So that was nice of you to follow through on actually following the instructions.
Did you give him extra points for that?
No, but I didn't take any off him.
Oh,
so
well
that's a benefit.
Well, that turns out very useful because I think I only beat Lockie overall by like 1 point. I used to read the players back, fellas.
Yeah, no, but he named all of his characters and everything as
Well,
well.
he did, but we didn't do any of the hobby scoring and whatnot. That was done by Pete's wife Ghislaine and Dean Lecoq, who
Ghislaine is an amazing painter and
I was about to say
in her own right.
Absolutely.
And,
so both of them very talented hobbyists. So if they gave you a point for that, then that's on them, not me. So did you end up changing the relics and psychic powers and everything at all, or did you just run it as you wrote it?
The psychic powers stayed consistent for the Incarn and the Shadow Seer. The only change to the relic is because I didn't change Warlord trait, so it's always the one where you get out of the transport after it moves. Yeah, unique to Soaring Spire. It's annoying that it has to be my true Warlord, but it's a very valuable ability. But the relics went between Storied Sword. I used 2 games, and then I used I forget the relic's name, but the one that ignores Overwatch when you advance and 3-up invulnerable.
Star Mist Raiment.
I used that 4 times. Yeah, Star Mist Raiment. That's the one. I should know these things.
It's not like you need it for your job or anything like
that.
No,
not at all. So, very quickly, favourite game of the weekend that you got to play before I move on to Jordan's list?
I suppose my favourite game was actually against the Raven Guard, piloted by Mark Bruce. That was a pretty exciting game.
Mark's was a pretty orthodox style of Raven Guard, aggressors, Centurions.
Yeah, I think it's a theoretical kind of Raven Guard list where you do castle up at the back, your eliminators pick off key characters, and then your Thunderfires do the job. But he runs the aggressors as a drop, and the Centurion grab as a drop, and that just minces stuff. So,
oh yeah,
could be pretty nasty.
Not so much against Harlequins because you, between your invols and no armor, the grav doesn't work as well as it could against other armies.
Yeah, the grav doesn't. It's the
100 shots also kind of hurts.
Oh yeah. all those hurricane bolters.
Yeah, this is the thing is with Marines. So the key kind of with the list or the idea against Marines was that if it's Centurion and bolter meta at 24 inches, because the Soaring Spite can obviously move 22 and then have fusion, but there's a lot of ways they can actually get further than that 22 inches.
Yeah, so that's things like Fire and Fade, Twilight Pathways. There's a couple of different combos.
Yeah, the relic. So that's kind of how I run it. It allows you to leapfrog lines and just target saturation, basically. And then this obsession people have with killing the Haywire jet bikes, which is really handy. That's what worked in that game. Is I ran them basically as you run a Terminator unit with 3-up invulnerables. So that was kind of the crux where he had a Smash Captain and Shrike go into them and a Smash Lieutenant. The idea was to clear those out because once they're dead, the Centurions drop, they kill the transports, and then it's downhill for me. They actually survived. 3 of them did, and then unsupported killed Shrike in return.
Oh wow.
Okay, because I'd overcommitted them basically to drop Thunderfires, because Haywire destroys Thunderfire cannons. They're 4-wound vehicles. But yeah, then they survived, which was good. So it meant I had the transports alive. Now, he went second and put the Centurions and aggressors in reserve. But then when the Centurions came down, I think he committed reasonably, what you'd expect in that he went 2 into each of the transports, because obviously if he drops them at 24 inches, the Harlequins can't get pistols in range, and then it's just cleaning up. Mm-hmm. But by doing that split commitment, having negatives, having the invulnerables, it ended at, each transport had 1 or 2 wounds left. So that worked pretty well. Yeah. Having the Troopmaster be able to move an insane distance. I did the move 22, get out of the transport, auto advance, and then charge. So he, ignoring Overwatch, backlines characters and can lock down things. So it's a throwaway kind of warlord, but it's the trait that matters. That happened in the guard games as well. He leapt, 50 inches or 40 inches across the table and locked down 2 tank commanders, even just for a turn.
And that's it. If you can tag a couple of tank commanders and then take out a company commander in the process, then you're laughing.
Well, because that's what it's about managing units, and because the entire list does damage. Nothing in the list is not active at any time. So it does provide a lot of pressure. 30 Fusion kind of deals with vehicles, I think.
You think? Maybe?
And Marines. I think I killed every single Scout and Primaris Marine with a Fusion pistol. It was brutal.
Oh, wow. Okay.
No gene seed collection for those apothecaries.
Well, it's like, oh, Harlequins are a combat army. Yeah, no, we're going to do combat from 6 inches away with melter guns.
Well, this is the thing with Harlequins. Like, a lot of people's like, oh, no melee weapons. You're not killing Marines with your melee weapons.
No.
Your melee weapon strength is rerolls to wound. And so when I played the Tyranids that had like 120 gaunts, they do a lot of hordes string out to objectives. So you apply this pressure of like 12 Harlequins onto essentially 3 models from their unit.
Yeah.
Or even just 1 unit in, you can 1 CP to get back in your transport, which is just wonderful. It's a very unique ability of Soaring Spite, that's their like unique
Their faction.
stratagem.
Yeah, faction
And
strategy.
so it's like get out, smash out 24 attacks from like 6 models. Their strength 3 rerolls to wound, so you clear out like 15 gaunts and then just jump back into transport.
Nice.
Feels good.
Well,
but that's how you kind of get through horde armies, I suppose. And Marines kind of got rid of most of the hordes in WA. Cheers, boys.
well, since you've just talked about beating Raven Guard, why don't we talk about Jordan's list? Because Jordan was 2/3 Raven Guard?
Yeah, 2/3 Raven Guard. So it was a successor Raven Guard battalion.
Which is why they were
with
black
the
and white,
long
not just
range.
black.
It was painted like white scars. not 100%.
Well, I
but
saw-
do
Bit of a
call them
hat tip towards
Raven
white scars. How's that?
just
Yeah.
For people's convenience. But they were painted like white scars.
Well, they had
and
black
it says it-
black fatigues on the scouts, I saw.
Yeah. Well, they were like brown pants, dark brown.
Yeah. So they're
Scouts.
not white scars. They're totally
No,
not.
white scars. Yeah, no, they're not.
They're
definitely
a
not
successor
white scars.
chapter.
They're a successor chapter. Come on.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were a successor Raven Guard chapter, which was long range marksman for plus 3-inch range. So you get those flamers, 11-inch range flamers was the key there, and stealthy for always in cover, which is super useful against guard anyone who doesn't ignore cover, which is pretty much non-marines.
Well, the
at the
other thing I
moment.
should say before we go any further is you did the right thing as well, because I've got relics listed, I've got chapter master, all your pre-game stuff listed. Like,
Yep.
Great big pats on the back to
you know,
both of you.
Well, that's it exactly. We've got the number one for both categories, and they both did the right thing. So there you go.
I have to say though, with my relics and stuff, I pretty much never used that loadout. So even though it was the default, I pretty much never touched it. So
Fair enough.
I think the only thing I used there was the 4-damage Thunderhammer. But the Warlord trait, I think I only paid for it in a single game. Before deciding I'd rather just have the CP.
Yeah.
Mm.
So
Yeah, it was the single battalion. It was 2 units of assault centurions, a unit of grav centurions, and then it was 3 squads of scouts, the chapter master with the jump pack Thunderhammer, storm shield, and then it was a lieutenant with jump pack as well. And then it was a spearhead of Imperial Fists with a captain. He was the warlord, so he was giving the CP and the reroll 1s to wound relic.
The Eye
he
of
crowded
Hypnoth.
around.
Yep.
Or they crowded around him the 3 whirlwinds and 3 thunderfire cannons. So it was kind of the artillery detachment there.
yeah, and I mean, I don't know if did you mention the 3 scout squads?
Yeah, 3 scouts.
Yeah, you
was the
did.
battalion.
Yeah.
Just the chaff. Keep people out.
Well,
And,
generate CP,
fill up
screening,
CP, yeah.
and pick up some objectives as you need to, because they are troops choices. Because we did have one of the missions running 4 pillars, which I think surprised a few players, because they went, do any troops score this one, or is it just infantry? And I've gone, no, troops. Oh, I don't have any troops. Well,
Which does bring me to one of the questions that I had, I guess, which is around what kind of thing did you think of when you were looking, when you were preparing for this event, Jordan?
What was I preparing for?
What
Did
Well, did
were
you read
things
the
that-
missions?
Yeah, well, did you read the missions is probably one of the things. But
I did read the missions, and 4 pillars. I was a little bit like, well, maybe I can get a point, and just kill everything else. You get a point for.
Valid strategy.
So,
Yep.
So it turns out killing stuff is a very good part of the list. So that's where I got most of the
do
points
you know
from.
I've heard that? Yeah.
Well, you only
but no,
dropped
no, it
those
was
4 points in
actually-
game 6, didn't you? It was literally
what was
just
that?
you only dropped those 4 points in game 6 against Tom from memory.
Yes. The rest of the games were
Decisive?
pretty decisive. I think the closest game apart from Tom's was against Mike Horton, his Tau. And that was a little bit back and forth. When your opponent rushes at you and you don't have anything but artillery and scouts on the table, it's a little bit concerning.
Well, you were deep striking the Centurions, weren't you?
Yeah, deep striking the Centurions because
People
when they
would
drop
shoot them?
down in 11-inch flamers and bolt guns and stuff, and they can't be shot at because you put them on the table afterwards. They're very good. Very good.
You told me that every game you start them on the table, you get seized on. So you've given up putting them on the table.
I played a few games like as practice, and Master of Ambush, you just take them off the table, put them down before the game starts, and every time I do that, I get seized on. So I'd had enough, and I decided just to not even risk it.
Superstition is definitely a thing in this game.
Yeah.
So you burned most of your CP
That's
before the game even started then?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I started most games with 4 CP, which was enough for the Grav strat and maybe one use of only wounded on 4s in some games.
Because you spent 2 on Chapter Master, 1 on...
2 on Chapter Master. I got D3 back for the...
Oh, yeah, of course.
The Warlord.
Which is... that was Hand of Dawn or something, wasn't it?
Hand of Dawn, is the Warlord trait. And then I, most of the time, didn't spend the Relic or the Hero of the Chapter, so I saved those CP as well.
Oh, okay, but then, you're burning... Is it 1 per unit?
Yeah, 1 per unit, so 3.
So you're out 5 just from the get-go?
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
5 from the get-go.
So what was your...
So that's pretty much the battalion, gone.
Yeah.
So I start with 4 plus, D3 or something, pretty much almost every game there.
What was your favourite game, Jordan?
My favourite game? I did really like flaming down Hellhounds against Tyson's tank list. That's something ironic about...
Yeah, flamer tank being burned.
Being out-flamed, which was pretty funny, to be honest. So something about that made my my day, especially when the knight he had a gallant that was his wallet, but he ran in, pop only wounded on 4s on a unit, and it killed a single Centurion, and then they turned around and did about 30 something damage to it in return. So that was pretty funny, probably a little bit crushing, but in his, seeing your knight do nothing is kind of sad.
And then having it annihilated moments later.
Yeah.
But I think that's something people have forgotten about Centurions. I mean, the Devastator Centurions, we saw a lot of at the tail end of 7th and a little bit at 8th. And despite the model, they don't actually have power fists. And then we saw aggressors, which do have power fists. And now we're seeing assault Centurions again. And everyone seems to forget they are an assault unit. And they have, I mean, they're not chain fists, but they are basically chain fists.
Yeah, they're -4, 3 damage.
And they're 3 attacks each?
Well, it's the no negative to hit.
Yeah.
No negative is very good. And Chapter Master makes sure they almost hit every attack. They're 3 attacks base.
And then 1 for shock assault.
And then, they get 1 for shock assault. So the unit actually puts out a terrifying amount of damage.
Well, that's it. If they're hitting on 3s with rerolls, and then they're generally going to be wounding on 3s or 2s.
And then 3s or 2s, and then the Lieutenant was also usually with them every single game, so there were 1s to wound as well. So the unit's pretty terrifying to play against.
Well, I watched Tom's Incarn charge them, kill 2, and then just get splattered in response.
Yeah, got absolutely crushed there.
You sound devastated. I can hear the sympathy oozing from you.
I'm not a fan of the Incarn. Him flying around the board is some tricksy stuff that I'm not a fan of.
Well, that game really highlighted for me how good those Assault Centurions were, but not necessarily for assault, because you didn't really have any way of assaulting most of Tom's army. I mean, you blew the infantry away with the artillery company. And then
Flamers and Hurricanes is...
Well, that's it. I watched those, a unit of 6 of those guys drop in and kill 2 Crimson Hunters in 1 turn. Which was...
Oh, I think that might have been the Grav unit that killed...
Oh, was it? I definitely remember one of them landing with flamers and burning down one of the planes.
Yeah, so one of the planes in the back was the flame unit. I think with no rerolls, you average like 24 hits at -1 if you're in range. So that's my thinking there. Just enough damage to kill a Crimson Hunter. turned out to be right. It had already taken like 4 damage. So
Yeah, you burnt it out of the sky.
just to be safe, yeah, burn it out of the sky. Turns out best anti-air weapons are flamers.
Yeah, who'd have thunk that to shoot down a plane and use a flamer?
So we obviously know what you put in your armies. So starting with Andrew first, what kinds of things did you take into consideration when you were actually putting that army together?
Biggest thing that happened was I had a practice game against a mate's Ultramarines that was going. Originally, I was running a list that had about 70 just infantry Harlequins running across the table. Because we've given up on negatives to hit because of the whole rewording of rerolls to hit rather than reroll failed hit rolls.
Yeah.
Negatives to wound. Now that's uncharted waters.
I agree.
So for hordes, anyway, guys that can basically clear the table or run across. But the problem is Marines are a bit too strong to lock. You can't run this lockdown in combat with Harlequins for Marines. It was the same problem I had against the Catachan army that Mitch had the game I lost, because when they're putting even basic attacks, 4-up invulnerable is insane when you're fighting las cannons and Titan weapons and like stuff that destroys vehicles and things. But against infantry with like a single strength 4 attack or a few strength 4, they melt, and it feels so bad rolling like 10 saves and knowing that you need a 4-up to pass against a guardsman squad. So I abandoned the that idea, and I have my transports because I played Soaring Spire in First Blood this year. I played them as Frozen Stars in First Blood, but yeah. I suppose the big consideration of the list is I've run double or triple Harlequin jet bike units before. You only have enough CP to protect one unit. Only one unit has 3-up invulnerable, only one unit lightning fast reflexes. So I replaced a whole unit with literally the other troop master and another unit which of the transport fusion. So it works out to your 219 for 6 of them, and then that pays for the next troop master, which allows me to complete the battalions and get more CP. That was probably the biggest consideration, is that if I can only protect one unit, only take one unit.
Most of the Harlequin armies we see online these days are one big unit of 6, like you've just identified. You run one unit that you can buff and protect, and then 2 units of 2, just to round out the extra haywire. But I'm not convinced.
Yeah, if you're taking it as a support. It's why I'm looking at Void Weavers now as well. Just the solo transports do survive and holding objectives, particularly with the Incarn. The Incarn's probably the biggest part of the list, is that the transports everything. The melee weapons, as I mentioned earlier, clear light infantry just fine with rerolls to wound. That's why there's 2 troop masters, one that can get out of the transport after it moves. Like, that's the biggest way to deal with any hordes or just basic infantry. Even shield drones during the tower game and things like that. The bikes need those Zephyr Glaives. Just, it amps the threat level of them, or the perceived threat of
having a 2 damage weapon.
Because you want your opponent to focus on those units. The longer the transport's alive, the longer you're fine, because it's you need to reduce your opponent's number of units. Because if they can only shoot transports, they can't kill the actual fusion. So if you're already in their face, like what happened against most of the opponents, they killed transports. Like, I got charged by the Crast Knight from Tyson's list in the final game, and it killed 3 transports. It's like, cool. That's like really good for the Knight, obviously, stomping transports, but for the overall game, it doesn't stop my warriors.
Doesn't really add value to that.
It doesn't stop the actual damage.
Well, that's it. All the Harlequins bail out and then melt the Knight to the ground.
And what do? Lock you down? You're freaking Harlequins. You ignore the rule book. It's great. I've half forgotten how to play 40k like half the time. The main way is the transports can't do that. I suppose that's the annoying bit, but also the bit you may have to make clear to your opponent is the transports themselves can't retreat and charge. Also, locking down the Harlequin bikes, you almost don't want to have them locked in combat because you can't advance out of combat, which means you can't activate 3-up invulnerable.
No, you have to use, I think it's Tears of Ishar when you take a casualty to get the 3-up at that point.
Yeah, which when an opponent has smite and things is actually pretty good. That's how you would protect a second unit, deliberately put it out front to get smited so you can activate it.
But it's a 50 point model, 51 point model that you don't really want to lose to gain a threat involved for the rest of them.
But what the Incarn does, and this is what gave me so many battle points, is the Incarn, you don't run it anywhere in particular, just use its psychic powers. But my backline unit, the Incarn runs and sits on backline objectives, which is cool. As soon as something on an objective dies, the Incarn can teleport, which is awesome. Especially in the melee phase, you attack something. If your opponent doesn't have CP left to interrupt, you attack somewhere else, kill that in melee, and the Incarn teleports. The biggest one is defend objectives, because defend objectives, obviously, your opponent's only going to kill, like they deliberately move to kill exactly, or a little bit extra. But Thunderfires, Whirlwinds, I had my backline unit shot off a defend objective. Cool. Incarn teleports. I still have that defend objective to the end of the turn. But unlike a Demon Prince, doing that, he's then back in it next turn.
Yeah, like because of the teleport
36 inches, 40 inches across the table. Which is why, as much as he's a horribly hard model to point for, I think, for the game, because he does incredible work in an aggressive army. But the one game like against Mitch, where I was on the back foot and defensive, he feels like a Demon Prince without wings. It's just slow. And you can't get that full 300 points, 280 points value out of it. And so this is where it's like, you need to build the list around it. It needs to be aggressive. It needs to have forward movement. You need to have units that allow it to pop up. So he carried a lot of the heavy lifting. So things like the Crass Knight, the Centurions in the game I played it, tanks, like various things. He was killing about 3 units a game of like high value melee targets. But yeah, he kind of completes that list. He's that last bit of oomph. When the Smash Captains came in and tried to annihilate my bike unit, the intention was that they'd kill the bike unit. I've still got all my transports, and the Incarn would teleport. And so then I have the Incarn free to, smite and gaze if you need, a Smash Captain, which then a transport can just finish off. And he can jump into Marine units, start killing eliminators, that kind of thing. But yes, so that's the plan of the Incarn, is always plan for your opponent's units, or for what your opponent's going to kill and how you're going to get him in there.
It's quite a tricky model to use.
Yeah, I think once you wrap your head around it, you do know when. The thing that's kind of good is it's annoying for your opponent, because you can teleport whenever something dies. So if it doesn't necessarily have to teleport, but I sometimes teleport him just to be like, oh, what's he planning? Why did he move it there if I killed a unit? Why?
Yeah.
Why is this happening? One of the key ones actually against the Tyranids was I had my jet bike unit strung out, and Old One-Eye charged in and killed them in one round of combat. He was actually going to pile in and attack again into my Troop Master, but because you remove it after last model, not just generally where the unit is, I removed kind of the model that would allow me to be 1 inch out of Old One-Eye's, consolidate pile in range and just be in the way. So, and obviously as not a charge target, you can use it to block these micro pile-ins, which is pretty good.
It's a very clever little move.
Because obviously they're not going to just pile into it. They can't strike it because they've already charged. It's the same as Smash Captains going into chain long consolidations, because obviously it becomes the most the
closest target.
And if they move within an inch, you're copying 6 strength 6 reroll wound, like attacks that do mess stuff up. So yeah, he really can do quite a lot of work when you have a lot of the little micromanaging when you're actually in their face, which is pretty cool. But yeah. Otherwise, the biggest thing is just the control you have over the game. Just Harlequins in general, their biggest strength is the fact that you can't fight them like a normal army, where it's like, oh, if you retreat with this unit, it can, they're not going to be able to charge, or they're not going to be able to shoot, or they're not going to be able to do this, because none of it costs you CP to do. It's an inherent rule. They're more expensive per unit, but it's good that it doesn't break down in turns 4 and 3 and 4 when usually you're out of CP.
And that's, I guess, when you want them to be able to, need them to be as powerful as possible in those last couple of
the mid game. Yeah,
so that you can obviously use them to their full advantage right to the end.
And then the final trick is, of course, people ask you, how far can you move with your transports? How far's your range? This kind of stuff. The main one is with the transports, you've got the relic, which gives you the +6. So you have 28-inch move on that transport with then the 6-inch fusion pistol range. You've got the double move from the Shadow Seer.
Twilight Pathways, yep.
Always move your Shadow Seer first. There's nothing worse than having a 3-inch range spell and moving your vehicle, and then the Shadow Seer doesn't advance.
Being out of range,
to reach it. That screws you up. But yeah, so that unit can then move twice. The other one is, as you mentioned earlier, the fire and fade trick, where normally for Eldar people don't think about it because they're not open topped. But you shoot with the transport first, fire and fade your 7 inches, and then shoot with the unit out of the top, because it's a separate unit for shooting purposes.
So you're moving 22, then 7, and then still got a 6-inch range.
So when people set up these defensive lines, the biggest trick to the deployment then as well is so I centralize the transports. So they can kind of pressure any corner of the board. Say we're talking about Dawn of War deployment, even Hammer and Anvil to an extent, but forcing your opponent to abandon flank by using the jet bikes. I deploy them up front on one side. They're deliberately there so that, they're 22-inch move, everything advanced, auto 6. So I know they're 16-inch move. I just say it's 22 because they're advanced and they're soaring spikes, so there's no penalty to advancing. Plus they're advancing to get 3-up invulnerable. So it's 22-inch move, almost without fail. And then your opponent doesn't deploy in front of them, but there's a 1 CP strat that allows you to redeploy that unit, or 1 unit before the game begins, but after you know who's going first. So forcing a couple of times, it's forcing the opponent to abandon flank opposite to the jet bikes and going, oh, sweet, they'll have to move across and get double moved. It's like, cool, you're in that corner. Now that I know I'm going first, or if I'm going second, I don't have to move them. They're out of danger. But if I'm going first, it's like you redeploy them and suddenly your opponent goes, oh, shit, they're going to have this 3-up invulnerable save unit that is now literally in their face. And it provides that much pressure. And first turn, you burn your CP. You just go, invulnerable. You chuck them straight in there. You attack twice. You kill as much as possible. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not just because I own the models. I do own the. I love doing it. I do like a glass kind of scheme and look on them. But there is a very specific reason that it's. I think it's pretty min-maxed for like the units.
What we'll have to do while I'm thinking of it. We'll have to grab some photos from the both of you so we can put them in the show notes for this episode. So if you want to check them out, you can see both the armies.
Wouldn't it be awesome if we'd actually taken some photos?
Did you?
No.
You didn't?
No.
You're the photographer.
Well, I was a little bit busy.
I suppose the very final part that makes it work, obviously I should explain, is the Warlord trait. Look, it's worth the Kingslayer one for this list because normally people stick on Silent Shroud because it ignores Overwatch. It's current edition 8, like you need to have a way to ignore Overwatch if you assault. The character is amazing because he's a 25mm base that can flip and kind of go anywhere. So against like the Tau, I killed a couple of shield drones from between the broadsides and a Riptide. He charges first, ignores all their Overwatch, tags units.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to lock them, he just needs to tag them. And so even if he dies, he's done his job because you need to it buys my list 1 turn, and that's all it needs. There. And so that's how the entire list kind of works.
Awesome.
Cool. So if you want to download this episode and make yourself an Harlequin army, there you go.
There you go. You've got that handed to you on the platter there.
Very in-depth.
Yeah.
Now, Jordan, there are expectations for your answer now. Just bear that in mind.
I shoot.
I was going to say, answering with flamers and hurricane bolters is not an appropriate answer.
It's appropriate for me.
Yeah. But what were the kinds of things that you were thinking about when you did put the army list together, Jordan?
Okay. So I usually play like Deep Strike armies. I do enjoy the old Deep Strike. When I was putting this together, I initially started with 2 battalions of scouts and stuff, and I found that the problem with deep striking is that, or deep striking Centurions specifically, is that they're super, super slow after the deep strike. So if there isn't a way for you to get close to anything, you are kind of walking across the table for the majority of the game, after you've dropped. And your drop does kill a lot, but, the 4-inch move and the D6 advance doesn't really cut it. So the consideration was to throw in the artillery. The artillery did a lot of work in almost every single game. The Thunderfires are amazing. In clearing away things that would prevent the deep strike. Scouts hiding out of line of sight, cultists, Chaos Marines in a lot of games, drones, stuff like that. Stuff that, is intended to, push out the deep strike, stop, the flamers in range or the charge even in range of stuff like that. In a lot of the games, just the initial first turn, barrage of whirlwinds, barrage of Thunderfires. It was a lot of work in clearing out the way for the rest of the army. I think in my first game particularly, I played Ryan and his Chaos list, and he had Chaos Marines and part of Red Corsairs for the CP and all of the cultists and stuff. The first turn cleared almost every single one of them. I think there was a couple squads in the back, and what that allowed me to do in my following turn is there was nothing really that he could protect the rest of his army with. I got in range of pretty much everything. You want to drop down, you want to get in range of your flamers, you want to get in range of charges, everything like that. And if you don't have your cultists and stuff, just to stop, getting closer to where you want to be, objectives and stuff like that, then it makes it a lot easier. Your 4-inch move isn't quite a hindrance. When you deep strike and then next turn you can just walk onto the objective because everything in range of it's dead, is super helpful. So I'm super glad I've taken the artillery. They are super invaluable in almost every single game. They did incredible work. So I don't think there was a single game where I wasn't like, this artillery is the best thing ever in the Space Marine book.
So how long did you stay in Devastator Doctrine for, though? Because you've obviously got the Assault Centurions wanting to be in, at the very least, Tactical Doctrine, and then you've got the Artillery wanting Devastator.
So the way I used them is I immediately went to Tactical. I stayed in Doctrine the bare minimum. The negative on the heavy weapons is very nice turn 1 for clearing away the screens and everything like that, which is pretty much their main purpose in life. Clearing away, toughness for models and stuff like that, scouts, cultists, Space Marines, all that sort of stuff. Neg 2 is very good. I didn't really need the extra AP after that. I mean, if there's a choice between having -2, Thunderfires and then 200 -1 bolt gunshots and and whatever many flamers, I'd take the Hurricanes every time.
Fair enough.
And in every game, the -1 is incredible. Tactical Doctrine is amazing.
Did you ever use the Assault Doctrine at all, or did you just sit in Tactical for the rest of the game?
Never once used the Assault Doctrine, no. It turns out, -4 power.
You don't really need the extra -1?
You don't necessarily need -5. -5 isn't too much of a bonus, but yeah.
Maybe against other Centurions?
Every turn. Even in the final game versus Tom, where they, dwindling at the very end, I still was just in Tactical Doctrine. I think mainly because I forgot, but also because invols doesn't really matter.
No, exactly. Well, but by that stage, you were dealing with flyers and characters with jet invols, which didn't care.
I didn't have the CP to lock it back to Devastator, which might have made a difference at the very end. But
I forgot you could do that.
Even in the final part of the game, there was still a unit of Centurions, and the Hurricanes and stuff like that was still there.
Were there any surprises for you? So did you obviously you won overall and you dropped how many points of the whole thing? Was it 4? Did you say? 4. Yeah. So you did exceptionally well. But were there any surprises in that you had strength in the army where you weren't necessarily expecting it, or anything where you didn't perform as well as you had hoped, and so you had to wing it a little bit and do something differently?
Yeah. So in every game, the units performed extremely well. Throwing dice and full rerolls and rerolls 1s to wound, that sort of stuff. They do pretty much exactly what you'd expect. with that many shots and stuff like that. The only time I was a little bit caught out was in the final game with Tom.
Mm-hmm.
The negatives to hit, the laytalk planes and, fast reactions.
Getting
all
them
that
out to
sort of
neg
stuff,
3 and so on.
Even with, hitting on 5s with your rerolls and everything like that, the amount of damage that was actually going through was, I haven't done like math or anything on that, but it felt surprisingly low. The volume of firepower. And that was specifically into planes. Infantry and everything like that, just evaporate. So that wasn't really a problem, but it was specifically planes. I mean, I think I was joking with Tom in the game, but there was this one hemlock that, it was just being an absolute cockroach. Like, it was, getting hit multiple times, over and over again with like -1 weapons, and then it would pass its saves, and then it would get its 6 up for no pain, and and then it would keep going, keep trucking on. Like,
and the worst thing about the hemlock is you have to. It doesn't degrade essentially, or it does degrade, but it essentially doesn't.
Full wounds is the same as being on 1 wound essentially for the plane. And that was like the problem there. But yeah, it's didn't quite take into consideration all those negatives. I mean, I think he kept it on negative, saved his CP for lightning fast almost every turn, coming to the end of the game, which is an excellent play by him. But even 6s, re-rolling everything, it's super still resilient, and I didn't quite take into account like all those negatives are still quite good.
Yeah,
laytalk planes are still very good.
Well, that plane essentially cost your unit of Centurions towards the end of the game, because I saw it double back when it had banked around the back end of the board near the Thunderfires, and then double back across the table to your Centurions and your characters, your Smash Captain and Smash Lieutenant.
Yeah, I don't know if it was the one who smited. I think it might have jinxed.
Yeah, I think it jinxed, and then there was a couple of smites that came in, and then it fired its guns and
some very good smites in the last quarter there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that plane vastly underestimated how good the -3 is when you're only shooting at it with hurricane bolters.
With bolters, yeah.
And like grav and stuff like that. Like, it's still very, very good. That caught me a little bit off guard. I think there should have been a little bit more consideration from me about killing that plane specifically, because the Crimson Hunters aren't in that particular matchup, I don't think, quite as good as the Hemlock, especially when it gets its jinx off, which is pretty essential for the rest of the army.
So just digging down into that comment that you just made there, that you should have given it more consideration. When do you think you should have given that more consideration? When you were writing the army, or at the beginning of that particular game?
I think that particular game, the army itself doesn't actually have any way to deny. So that could be something, to consider as well. I didn't have a single time where I could stop psychic powers or anything like that going off. And that was super, prevalent when you get doomed, you get jinxed, don't guide, or the older, shenanigans that go on where you get full rerolls to wound, your negative save and all that sort of stuff. That was a particular moment where you felt it very, very hard. That, if only I had something that could stop, this barrage of psychic powers or something like that, that I'd otherwise have no way of dealing with. So that was something that I, had the consideration. I was like, I don't think I need, psychers. I'd rather just have the firepower. But looking
it seemed
back
to work
on
quite well for you, to be honest.
Yeah, now that Inquisitors and stuff are coming out, that could be something to consider as well, rather than like a librarian.
Yeah.
So that was my immediately thing. That was like, what can I do to improve this list? And I think some Inquisitor or something in there, just for
the problem is, what do you give up?
My capabilities, even. Yeah. What do you give up? That's a good question. Something to consider in the list.
Yeah, and
but yeah, the psychic powers.
One Centurion.
Yeah, a single Centurion probably. Is what I'd give up. 2 points for an Inquisitor. That sounds like a good trade to me.
Because you were bang on 2,000 points as well, weren't you, Jordan?
I think you were spot on.
Exactly. I paid for like a Stormbolter and something like that, just to fill it out. Something about not being on exactly 2,000 is a little bit triggering.
Yeah, I get that. If I've got 2,000, I want to use every single point of them.
Yeah. How can you not spend every single point you're given? That's
Well, somebody...
How does it how does it not kill you having a 6-man and a 5-man?
Oh, I'm with you, Andrew.
Okay.
Oh my God, that
I
was-
just ignored it by telling myself that
That you spent the 2,000 points
you know
and
that-
maximised your.
Do you know that you made a mistake on that army list, Jordan?
Sorry, what was that?
Do you know you made a mistake on that army list?
What have I made?
We didn't. I fixed it before the list submission because I could see what you were doing. You had both of them down as 5-man squads, but you'd paid for one of them as a 6-man squad.
Oh, okay.
So I added the extra Centurion into it.
Oh, I'd written for the cost of
Yeah.
6, but I put 5 in there.
So it was clearly meant to be 6, which is why you didn't take a penalty. But yeah, I noticed it and went.
It's the practice
points down.
It was very strange.
Practicing games, you had 6. So
Yeah.
But no, the 6 and 5 bothered me no end. I was sat there going, just drop a Thunderfire or a Whirlwind. Put the 6th in there.
So something. No, I mean I was looking at it and I really didn't want to take 6 and 5. But
See, I would have been
I
okay if you'd gone
convinced
6 and 6 with
myself
5 Devastator. That would have been okay for me.
yeah, there's no way I'm dropping that extra grab. That grab is incredible.
He might not have won if you'd done that.
Well, that's true.
But I convinced myself because I think math-wise, the 6-man unit, like I was saying earlier, can drop an Eldar plane, or
Yeah.
any plane, not specifically an Eldar plane, if you drop them in flamer range. And I think the 5-man just underkills it, whereas the 6-man is enough. So
You also got to remember that Eldar
that
are the
was how
benchmark.
I convinced myself. If I ever needed to,
Whatever
deep
it
strike onto
takes,
a
Jordan,
plane to
whatever
get
it
rid of
takes. Yep.
That's that unit right there.
So how about you, Andrew? With the benefit of hindsight, would you make any changes, or were there any areas that you thought that you'd potentially left yourself open? And yeah, obviously you won overall, so you did pretty okay with the list you took. But
The list terrifies me because I was lucky. I went first 3 times and I went second 3 times. And the times I went second when I probably needed to go first, I got stomped.
yeah.
Yeah, that's your clench moment because
This is the problem with the list is you have a look at it, and this is probably what the internet looks about and goes, why do these? You can't replicate it, you can't take it again. Is because sometimes you go second and you get shot off the table, and then that happens 2-3 games in a row, and you end up just another
Bottom of the pack.
bottom half. Like
Yeah.
it can go horrible. I think the moment it felt really good was you're rolling your own dice and you're kind of like, man, I'm rolling hot. And so you see that look in your opponent's eyes that they're like looking at you and you're like, oh, then, they'll roll their hits, so you roll their dice and then you roll freaking hot. And it feels good that you're just having a lucky day. And I think that's a bit why I might have been voted more sportsmanship. Because I was very, very aware that I was rolling quite lucky. Against the final, the guard list, you got 6 shots from Shuriken, 6 shots from Fusion. I'd hit 5 from the Fusion, and I'd hit 1 out of 6 for the Shuriken. So the balance rolls were there, but God, it was scary. But in hindsight, there was a different version of the list where you drop kind of the jet bikes and 2 of the transports out, and you put in triple Ravager, triple Razor Wing. So the triple Razor Wings in the Witch Cult for +1 damage against vehicles and monsters at 10 wounds or more, and you put in the classic Kabbalah Black Heart, triple Ravager. That's really how I'd fight more against Marines, I think.
it just makes the army more consistent.
It's pretty reliable. It also, the fear of the planes and the fear of the Ravagers buys time for the transports. I didn't have the models at the time, but that's the other way I would have run the list. I think that's probably how I'll look at it going into the future.
Yeah.
But we've got chapter approved in like a week, so
Yeah, see what that
who
looks
knows
like
what
and
happens.
what it says. I suppose just going back to something you said a minute ago, Andrew, one of the things that I do often tease players about, good-naturedly, and the more I like you, the more I'll tease you, but I do tease people because it's funny that it's quite often people win because of skill and they lose because of luck. It's bad luck on the dice, that's why I lost that, or, but one of the things you said was that you were rolling hot, you're having good dice rolls, and it was lucky. But I think that there's a lovely saying that something along the lines of, yeah, it's really funny. The more I practice, the luckier I get. I think luck is only a small component of people actually winning these games. There does actually, you do have to know what you're doing and how you're doing it and how to play the game as well. So
I mean, I think luck's where you get a 20-0, where it's probably more like a 15-5 or 14-6 win.
yeah,
Like, I definitely was winning the games I was winning. It just felt good that stuff went
stuff went your way.
But like Jordan was saying about his list with denying powers, I deliberately don't rely on the double move power. I don't rely on a lot of psychic powers. I don't rely on getting a charge off. It's having that. Whenever I have a transport go for a vehicle, it's not you line up your primary target, but I'll always have a second transport in range, or I'll have another transport that can do the fire and fade trick to get in range. Like, you've got to have those contingency plans if you fail on that roll. Psyche powers, the double move one, if that's your only way of doing something, and you roll a double one and you re-roll it with a CP and you roll a 2 or something like you don't base your strategy around stuff that fails.
Yeah.
Your strategy should be like Jordan's strategy is very sound, and it works because there's literally nothing your opponent can do to get in the way of it. The thing they do, naturally to get in the way of the Deep Strike Centurions, which is the true damage in the list, is screening units. So the rest of the list is, designed around getting rid of those screening units. And it doesn't matter if first turn, I've left 3 tank commanders alive, I've left a knight alive, I love this. If he kills the targets he needs to kill, which he's got enough stuff to overkill that, well and truly, and then he's got stratagems potentially to shoot again with a Thunderfire just in case. Like, there's multiple levels of just in case. But it's like, and this is what I think forms the meta a lot, is does that reliable strategy work?
Yeah. So what I'm hearing there, Andrew, is back to one of the first questions that I asked you, which was the types of things that you took into consideration when planning both of your lists, is to actually don't base your strategy on components of the game that are down to luck. You need to base your strategy on components of the game that you can control with skill and knowledge, experience, and.
But it's even more important for Andrew, though.
I think the huge part that playing the game regularly compared to you're looking at, like, Math Hammer is a huge thing in the list writing stage, but situational Math Hammer is what the game kind of is about, where, all right, Math Hammer's great when you're writing a list and seeing what value stuff is, but what if your Centurions aren't in range with their Flamers? What if, on average, very average, Fusion Blasters hit 4, wound 3 on a 3-up, do 3 lots of D6 damage. You say you're not within the strange range, you do 11 damage. So on average, you kill a T7 11 wound equivalent. But the Haywire unit backs up those little bit of maths where you go, all right, well, what if it doesn't quite, but I leave it on 2 wounds? What if I leave it on 3 wounds? Shuriken cannons do that. Haywire cannons do that. So when I target units, you roll by what's the most important and kind of adjust what you're doing during your turn. And that's just got down to experience, I think.
Yeah.
But I think that's also, the Harlequin army, in a nutshell, is how well can you roll a 4+. That's the sum total of playing Harlequins, because you either live or die by the 4+. And so what Andrew's done...
I think that's why they're literally the worshippers of the laughing god.
Yeah, exactly. It's a heads you win, tails you lose. But the trick, what you've done, though, you've set it up so that you've minimised the reliance on that. And that's the trick, is that with you see so many people try and play Harlequins, and they try and play them so cavalier, going, I've got a 4-up invul. Yeah, but if you can...
What about the...
Yeah.
But if you don't get that 4-up?
And that's the trick, is that it's so unforgiving when it goes wrong.
Not in there, man.
Yeah,
the Solitaire, we love the Solitaire.
Solitaire's amazing.
No, we don't. Solitaire's terrible, and I hate mine, and I'm actually going to repaint a new one.
It kills your dreams. You get him in, you get that sweet charge, and then he... with no reroll on the hit, and he rolls like 5 ones to hit out of his 10 attacks, and you go...
I charged an unwounded Solitaire into 3 Dire Avengers and died on Overwatch.
Yep.
My Solitaire does not like me, so I'm going to repaint another one. I got another one in Blister Pack waiting for me to repaint it, because this one's going to get retired because I hate him. He doesn't like me.
Yeah, I believe we had that discussion about superstition.
He doesn't like me.
I guess at one end of the spectrum, you've got, every shot matters with a fusion pistol. Like, you really feel those losses. And at the other end, there's my list where, you've got 200 hurricane bolter shots, and you're like, well, I reroll all of these. No, each individual shot is whatever. It just comes down to straight, how many dice can I roll?
Yeah.
You stack the front end of it by rolling 200 dice. He stacks the back end of it.
You feel, you don't feel the loss of, oh man, I missed that one shot on a 3+ when you're rolling 12 per guy. And
It's okay because I've got 200 more.
Well, what do the Centurions do? Is it 12 d6 on the Flamers and then 72 bolter shots?
Yeah, so 12 hurricane bolts each and 2d6 Flamers.
Yeah. So
on a Centurion unit. And the Grav unit especially, I think every single game, I was like, look, you average 3 kills a Lehman Russ, but you know what? I'll put 36 additional Hurricanes in there as well. So they just split, equal into, 2 tank commanders, and Grav ended up killing them all, and the Hurricanes were wasted. But if it lived with 1 wound, I wouldn't forgive myself. So
Yeah.
I think the other big part is with that and the rerolls, even when you don't even if you're ahead, even if you're behind, at no point do you stop trying to win the game.
Yeah.
And I think it's integral to players that do pull out turn 5, turn 6 wins or close games. And it's like, if stuff goes wrong, I know it feels bad. We all feel it, and it sucks. But it's like
the redundancies.
You have to give. I know Jordan's never. I know I've never. It's always a noble idea never to concede a game. But conceding a game is not about saying, "Oh, I concede," and taking off your models off the table. Conceding is a game is more about mentally conceding and going, "No, I can still do something. I can still win this. I can still get another point."
And
there's always hope.
Yeah, well, we discussed that as well on one of the live streams.
49-2 into a 49-3.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we did talk about when we were watching. I think it was Anthony versus Ryan, and
with Anthony just annihilating Ryan
he was,
in the early parts of the game. Yeah,
but Ryan, as you say, he didn't give up, and he made Anthony work for every single point.
The Aussie battler.
Because the thing is that when we do come to countbacks, so for example, Andrew, you dropped 1 game, but you want to make sure you've got as many battle points as possible, because when it comes to countback, that can make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
So we saw it with Tom and Jordan in that final game, where it very much looked like Tom bottom of turn 2. It looked like that was the end of the game. I
know that game just kept on going.
And then
I had to do some stuff and came back. I'm like, oh my god, they're still playing.
That hemlock. Man.
But that's an attitude thing where Tom just went, no, I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of just me walking away.
And he took your 4 points, Jordan. Yeah,
he did. He played extremely well.
Yeah.
So same with Mitch's game, which it wasn't screen, but yeah. So there was a point in that game after turn 2, my Haywire jet bikes died horribly and stuff just was not going great. I was failing the 4 invulnerable, where you give up on the idea of, say, killing the tanks and the stuff that's going to win me the game. But so I just cleaned up Garden Squad. I'm shooting Haywire. I'm shooting. Get me some kill points, and I think we ended up with a kill point difference of 6 to 8.
Yeah.
Of kill point difference that. So he didn't maximize the kill point difference. We still got some Maelstrom. I still got 4 pillars a couple of times. So that's what made it, 15-5 rather than a flat 20-0, where I just go, oh, bugger it. I'm just going to go all in, try and kill something just a laugh.
But I think that separates players. That acknowledgement and understanding of where the game is at and going, you know what, I'm probably not going to win this, but how do I minimize that?
You look at the end of day 1, I had a 12-8 win, a 20-0 win, and a 15-5. So Sunday I'm going there and going, hey, I'd like to get 2. That'd be nice, but just right opponents, right play. Always playing to win, and hey, it ended up working out. Yeah.
I think we've seen players before who, when things start to go against them, they mentally shut down.
Yeah.
So it does take... It's a skill in itself to be able to be playing in a game where things do start going wrong, and to be able to pull yourself around and be able to still continue to concentrate on the game and not mentally give up, and, as you say, concede without actually conceding, and then be able to pull yourself around to be able to go into the next game and not have the poor performance of your previous game impact you as well.
I think the mentality of calling it a game half the time is a big problem. Oh, it's just a game. It's just a game. It's just. But like at competitive, you're treating it like a sport, and it's like even if you were losing a sporting game, you say we're playing soccer or something, and you're down 4-0. If you're a striker, you're still going to kick a goal if you get the opportunity, even if it's 4-1 or something.
Yeah.
You don't, just because it is a game doesn't mean you can't enjoy it and care about it.
Look, I hear what you're saying, but I also think that there are different personalities, and I think that even in a sporting game, you're still going to have people who, when their team starts to lose, they stop participating in the game. Yeah.
Well, they sit down.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, not giving up makes a difference. That's always good.
I think it does make a difference.
The good players.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, stand up and keep your eye on the prize.
Keep your head high. Yeah.
Yeah.
Until it's game 6 when you're knackered and your knees are sore and you want to just have a sit down and a beer.
At the end of game 6, turn 6, final dice off, then you.
Yeah.
In your case, it's your back sore because you're trying to hold too many dice, Jordan.
I kind of think you might need some bigger hands.
Or smaller dice. Getting like
dice.
8 mil dice to try and hold them
That's probably more achievable, I'll be honest.
No, I didn't roll that many dice. I did still finish every single game. So
you did?
Yeah, definitely.
What was your RPM, you reckon, your rolls per minute?
It's at least 250 dice a turn. So,
well, there's actually some data I can...
period.
There's actually some data I can give you guys around how many turns on average, how much, like your average game times. So there's some interesting stuff I can give you. I'm just going to bring it up now. So
while he's bringing that up, we just talked about the fact that it's 6 games and sitting down for game 6, that type of thing. How did you guys cope concentrating for 6 games, 3 hours a game over 2 days? Like, that's pretty brutal.
Yep.
Don't paint till 5 a.m. the night.
Yeah,
I know you want to, but God, it was worth getting that sleep like Friday night.
Yeah.
I did the same thing, and let me tell you, there was many energy drinks just so I could stay awake.
I think you even chucked me one at one point.
Yeah, I did have handed them out at some point, yeah.
So I can tell you now, Jordan on average completed all 6 turns.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And his average game time was 2 hours, 34 minutes.
Jordan, did you table your opponents?
Almost everyone, yeah. There was a Halvoran in one game, and then there was Tom's characters and Plane left.
Okay. The reason that
in almost every single one, it was either turn 3 or turn 4.
Yeah, the reason that I asked that is just because with Mike saying that Jordan finished all 6 turns, tabling your opponent does make it a lot easier for you to finish all 6 turns.
Yeah,
it does.
Andrew, on average, got 5 turns and completed them in 2 hours and 50 minutes.
Nice.
Oh, what a slow
play the whole game, man. Oh, dude, don't say that. It's so risky.
It is risky. Triggers some people.
The biggest part, I think, with games is particularly Tau and things like that. It wasn't in the Tau game, like I finished that. The number of rerolls and the thinning of units and the number of units. When you've got, I have 5 transports, 5 units, so I have to pick up hit dice, wound dice, multiple wound dice. They save. Next unit targets, next unit targets. If your opponent rolls to wound, re-rolls to wound, you save, allocate wounds, then they allocate it. I think that actually takes a lot of time. The higher MSU count of armies, of stuff that it, like actually does stuff, and it particularly movement phase stuff, I think that contributes to a higher game time. But yeah, also the amount you know your opponent. Like, Jesus, I find it hard when you've got 2 brothers in the same room and a whole bunch of mates and workmates and things. Starting the game on time is the hardest because you walk up and you go, no way, I finally get to play you. And
well, we were watching when Jordan played Tom, and I think it was a good 25 minutes in before anyone actually rolled a dice.
Mm.
Oh, man,
like 3 hour round, and the first half hour was very, very dull. So
well, I actually started
we were having a chat. Actually, we're like, "How do I beat you?" Like,
did either of you answer that question just out of interest?
Vaguely.
You kill all my stuff. That's an answer, right?
Yeah, that's it.
No. Me and Tom were very sick.
Well, I'm going to ask because I'd be interested to hear what you guys think. So, as you guys are both aware, we had a Warhound in the room as a solo model, solo army.
2 Warhounds, didn't
No,
we?
it was only one. Unfortunately, one couldn't attend. But we had Steve's Warhound with double Inferno Cannon. He played all 6. He actually played 7 games, but we've only got the data for 6, obviously, because he played a scratch match.
Yeah.
Against
At the end of your game, Jordan.
No, it was before his game. It was the end of Ryan.
Oh, sorry, it was. Yeah.
So it was the end of game 5. He and Alex Staniford got the Stompers and the Swiggoths and played a scratch match in 20 minutes. Yeah. Average game time for the Warhound. What do you reckon? Over the 6 games, what was his average game time?
32 minutes.
Andrew?
Oh, I want to say like there's a minimum of 20 minutes of mucking around and chatting, and then so I'm actually going to go 40 minutes.
I'm going to go 1 hour and 5 minutes.
Average time over 6 games was 1 hour and 10 minutes.
So I knew it'd take longer.
Yeah, it was half an hour of messing around. That's why I was wrong.
He only got past turn 2 in 1 game, though.
And that was the game he won, though.
That was the game he won, yeah, where it went the full 6 turns.
He won a game.
He won a
Did
game.
his opponent get all 6 turns in, though?
Oh, yeah, all his opponents.
I wonder what their average game time was. Like.
Oh, look, I'm sure that they're going to be at the low end of the field. Like, I know he played one of the guys here whose average time is 2:04.
It feels like a side quest in the tournament. Like the tournament's your
beat
6
the
games
Warhound
through the level, but then the Warhound is like your side quest,
mid-level boss.
It's
You said
Mini
there
game.
that you said there that the Stomper and the 2 Squiggoths played the
Warhound. Yes, they did.
Who actually won that game?
So Alex won it, but Alex was also a good sport about it because Alex went first with his Squiggoths and Stomper. The Stomper did about 20 wounds in its opening salvo.
Nice.
And the Warhound then did 20 wounds to one Squiggoth and 16 to the other with its Inferno Cannons. Mm-hmm. And then in turn 2, rather than just shoot it off the table, which is what he could have done with the Stomper, he elected to charge with the Squiggoths and advanced with the Stomper to try and get it in combat. Both Squiggoths died on Overwatch.
Nice.
He's then advanced.
8d6, is it?
8d6 per strength 7, neg 3, flat 4.
Yeah.
Nice.
He's then advanced up with the Warhound, done about 20 wounds to the Stomper. The Stomper's then moved up, shot everything, and after a smite prior to that, has actually blown the Warhound up, and the Warhound has gone up and killed the Stomper.
Nice.
And the Stomper has gone up and killed everything but the Weird Boy and 10 Grots.
Nice.
So the game could have been over turn 2. It actually dragged out to, I think, turn 3 or maybe turn 4 over the course of the shooting phases. But
It's majestic.
it
What a
was
game.
beautiful to watch. We actually did get it on stream, and we did get some photos of it as well, which went on the Facebook page if you want to go and check it out, because they were the biggest models in the room, and we just had to get them on one table. And unfortunately, both of them were losing games, but not losing at the same rate. And then Steve won a 20-0 win, and that just skewed the whole thing, so I couldn't match them.
Yeah.
So we said to the guys, look, how long do you reckon it'll take? And they went, half an hour, and they finished it in about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So I had to get them on the table because it was just a cool thing to have. We stripped all the scenery off the board. They had some craters, and that was about it because it was largely irrelevant. So
There was no way they were hiding.
there was
behind
no
any of
hiding.
that.
So anyway, guys, we've been chatting for quite a while now, and I've just realised it's been a fairly lengthy chat. But thank you very much for coming on the show.
Not a problem. Pleasure.
Yeah.
to have a
Thanks for
chat.
having us. It's a good chat.
We'll hopefully see you in 2020 for a bunch more OBSEC events.
Can I ask one more question?
I'm sure the guys will be happy with that.
So I just wondered, obviously, this is one of our competitive events for the year. Andrew, I know you played in First Blood this year. Jordan, did you play in First Blood?
Yeah, I played GSC actually.
How did you feel? Did you feel that there was any difference between the two events as far as the overall feel of the events?
Between First Blood and Masters.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, First Blood felt a little bit more chill. I don't think I was at like the top table.
That might have been why it was more
with,
chill.
GSC, but Masters felt the heat was on. It was, although every game was fun, every opponent was a good opponent. There was definitely an air of got to try hard for the win here. About at the top tables up there.
How about you, Andrew? Did you notice any difference?
Yeah. I think Masters, like, obviously the lists are crafted a bit more intensely. What's good about First Blood, I suppose, is just playing different players. People are a lot more chill at 1,000 points. I think the game's a bit faster, and it's less taxing, I think, is the big bit. When you have shorter games, even if you have as many games, it's just particularly towards the end of the day, I think you just have a bit more fun, because
it's not as much on the line.
Deciding to deploy, half as many units and fighting half as many units. You don't have to think as much, which is good.
There is something to be said. 8th edition at the moment is pretty lethal. 2,000 points especially. So in 1,000 points, you definitely feel like you play every turn. Whereas in the Masters, 2,000 point list, there are some turns where it feels like, if you don't go first, you are, you just get shot off the table turn one. So I think in 1,000 points, that's the difference is you play a lot more game.
So what I'm hearing then is Masters next year needs to be like 1,500 or 1,250 points.
I reckon 750.
I reckon 750.
Yeah.
Oh, look, you heard it here. Heard it here first. There's 12 months notice for everyone else out there.
And then max it out on one HQ stuff. We'll just run patrols only.
It's Jordan's fault, just so you're all aware. We're going to be playing 18 games over 2 days.
If Jordan goes Centurions 3 years in a row,
our 20-minute games.
Perfect.
We'll play 9 on the first day.
Yeah.
I'm going to say the one thing though, I think Harlequins are pretty chill to play because if you're playing a list that no one really considers meta or just like no one knows what it does kind of thing, then people go into the game a lot more chill. They're not
looking at 18 Centurions with Hurricane Bolters.
Yeah, there's a different response you have. When you've got, say, Jordan's list, you can deal with our list. But if you set up and you've got your Orcs, or you've got your Tyranids or GSC or whatever, and you're just setting up against a gun line, you're like, okay, I'm playing this game, but God, it's just going to be dice at me all game. Trying to go positive into games gets pretty rough.
Yeah, I felt like that was a bit me at other people when you drop the unit and then you're just like, well, do you like 200 dice? And most people.
I love rolling saves and surviving, man. It's so much fun.
You put your models on your table and then your opponent picks up their models. Like that's what the thing is. Like,
you feel bad about it. I hope you feel bad about it.
Not even slightly do I feel bad. People laugh at the Centurions, and now no one's laughing.
Well, that's it. They were definitely some confused questions last year.
What's your prediction for next year, Jordan?
I almost forgot that since Raven Guard isn't orange. That's how bad it was last year. I'm like, I gotta play Raven Guard again, orange. It's like, hold up, Raven Guard isn't orange at all.
Where are the orange ones out of interest? Do you still have them, or have they moved on?
They're in my case right here, actually. The entire army from last year's in this case, or in a cabinet.
Yeah.
I love that you own more than tournament max Centurions. That warms my heart.
Yeah, I own 24, so it's
just because you play for fluff, man.
When's Codex Centurion coming out? That's what I'm asking.
I think straight after Codex Lieutenants.
Primaris Lieutenants?
Yeah.
Codex Primaris Lieutenants.
That's a Masters. Let's just go Lieutenants only.
Hey, look,
you can't even run that many.
Yes, you can. You can.
Special game.
3 in a squad.
Well, you go Supreme Command, you can get 15 in there because you can go Standard Lieutenant and Primaris Lieutenant, can't you? And then you got lieutenants in Phobos armor as well. I'm sure
different races. 3 detachments.
Yeah, I reckon you can get quite a few lieutenant. Maybe not 2,000 points worth, but
from 3 different Marines list. Sounds good to me.
Next year's list?
Oh, dude.
Supreme Command of Lieutenants.
Someone's almost Rob's list this year.
Let them walk across the table.
No one wants to hit, but we all re-roll.
Well, guys, congratulations again on your respective wins at Masters 2019. Thank you very much for attending the 5th annual Masters.
Yes, we do have to chat to Games Workshop in Morley and see whether or not there's any nice staff who work there who will let us put the trophy up in the store. So.
I'll have to ask my manager, but I'll try.
You said nice staff, and I don't know about that.
I know it's pushing it, isn't it, Jordan?
Look, the manager's cool, but the full timer, I don't know.
Everyone at Morley is nice. Let me just.
All right, guys. Well, thank you.
I did, and just so you know, however long ago, I did say the more that I make fun of you and tease you, I'm nice to people I don't like. So.
Oh man,
That's why I've been married for 20 years, and she keeps calling me names.
That's it.
She's always nice to me. That feels
Yeah. It's
All right.
not true. I laugh when my dog beats me. It's all good.
You laugh when you dog. And on that note,
Yeah.
we're going to take a quick break and be back to wrap up the episode in just a second.
Thanks very much, guys.
So thank you very much again to Jordan and to Andrew for joining us for this episode.
Yeah, thank you very much for giving up your time and for sharing your insights into the armies that you played and what kind of decision-making process went into putting that together.
It was quite interesting what sort of got dragged out of some of those parts of the conversation, particularly around the Harlequins and the Incarn and some of Andrew's thoughts. So it actually gave me pause to think about the Incarn again and maybe try him again. I wasn't really a fan of the... I still feel he's probably overcosted, but it's actually going to make me have another look. So that's always positive.
Wow.
Well, it is. And with chapter approved up for pre-order shortly, then and all the rumoured points decreases, that'll only make the Harlequins better. So
Yeah, and it is, I guess, it's always good to talk to somebody else because it does give you the opportunity to be able to throw ideas around and to think about things that you haven't thought of, thought before and share ideas. So it's one of the reasons that we do talk about when you are building an army to actually talk to other people and put it out there and ask for comments and get some feedback from other people around how they think it works to expand your knowledge.
Yeah. You can also, we did a guest spot recently on the 40k Stats Center podcast around Masters as well. So you can go and check them out. There'll be a link in the show notes for their podcast, so you can go and say hello to the boys. I met Val at LVO in 2017 and been chatting to him ever since. So nice to get an invite to chat to them as well. Before we go, the Sisters of Battle release has been and gone. It's all sold out.
Took longer than I was expecting.
Yeah, well,
now, partly that was because I wasn't actually sure whether or not any of the stores were going to have any, but I thought if they did have them that they would be gone almost instantly, and yet we were still seeing them being promoted that there were still a few left at lunchtime.
Yeah, I know that Fremantle sold them instantly when they opened their doors.
Okay.
I think they only got a handful, whereas I think Morley got 9 in store. So I don't know whether they actually had any left opening today. At time of recording, it's Saturday the 30th. So, but yeah, look, I saw some photos this morning of a comparison shot between the new and the old models. It's pretty significant.
Is it?
Oh yes, there was
scale leap.
Yeah, and then some. They're closer to 32 mil these days rather than 28. It's pretty significant.
So how's that going to go? So the reason that you didn't pick up a box was because you've already got a Sisters Army.
Yeah.
And so you were just going to wait till February and pick up the Codex. So how's it going to go playing your old army now?
Well, the only thing I can think of doing at the moment is because they've also gone up in base size again, which is standard for the course these days, is gluing the old base on top of a new base.
To give them the extra height?
To get the height. Because that'll probably make up for 80% of the difference.
Yeah.
But I don't really want to do that.
No, it looks tacky.
It does. So, and those models were painted back in, I'm going to say 2007, 2008, something like that. They were painted before that, stripped and repainted around the 07, 08 period.
It's going to be tricky to take them off and just rebase them as well.
Yeah, well, I can't fix any of the damage and any of the paint around the feet. So
no, that's it. So unless you put them on snow terrain, or mud, I guess, so that you can
kind of hide
it.
Yeah.
And then potentially looking at putting them all on something, like adding some rocks or something to give them
grass
some
or something
slate.
around the feet.
Well, I'm thinking slate type of thing to give them some
height.
elevation.
Yeah. Well, the other one I'm going to be interested to see is the new Saint Celestine miniature, which came out at the end of 7th edition as part of the Triumvirate of the Imperium from Gathering Storm Part 3. I've got that on sprue from that release. Now, was
interesting because when that came out, you desperately needed it, and it's still on sprue.
Well, I didn't need her. She just came with the rest of the kit, which is why I actually had someone who wanted to buy her off me at the time, and that fell through. Because I've already got a Saint Celestine from the metal range from years gone by. and I'm going to be interested to see how the plastic Saint Celestine from 3 years ago matches up in scale to the new miniatures, because if she's small again, it's going to look really weird. Particularly her Gemini, who are just glorified Seraphim, and the new Seraphim, if the new Seraphim are bigger than them, that's going to be a bit of a strange one as well. So, yeah, very keen to see some of the new plastic kits in person.
I'd really love to talk to someone from Games Workshop around the scale leap and find out what the thoughts are behind that.
I would assume, and it is my assumption, it's all around being able to put more detail on and make them more to scale. Like when you look at some of the older miniatures, they're 28 mil, but they're massively exaggerated hands and feet and heads and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas as they're creeping them up, they're also scaling. Essentially, they're scaling everything else down. Like the weapons are looking more proportioned, the arms and the hands are looking more proportioned. They don't look like gorillas half the time, because if you actually straightened out Space Marine arms from the late 90s, their arms are huge.
Go all the way down to their mid-calf, yeah.
So I'm assuming that's the thought process behind it, is if we make them a bit closer to true scale and we increase the height of them, we can leave everything else roughly the same.
So in that case, should they be moving it over to 32 mil scale rather than still calling it 28 mil?
Well, someone made a comment this morning that the new Sisters of Battle Rhino kit, they pointed out a very good thing. There's a gunner that sits in the top of that holding the Stormbolter. And if she is to scale in terms of the new plastics rather than the old metals, that Rhino needs to be bigger. Because
how's she going to fit in there?
Well, not only that, but the kit itself didn't, like the old Rhino kit, I don't know how they'd fit her in the top there. So the question now becomes...
Isn't that what I just said?
I don't know if I'm not explaining it well. Because everyone just assumed it was a conversion kit, like an upgrade sprue or two, which is exactly what I thought it'd be. But now I'm wondering, did they add 25% to the Rhino chassis and redo the sprues? Because that would then keep it in scale with the new models, and that's going to create other issues, because now you've got a Rhino that's...
Rhinos that are significantly bigger than
I'm only
the
taking
others.
a guess. I could be completely wrong, but to keep the gunner in scale, that's the logical problem. So it's going to be interesting come February when they drop the rest of the release.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, we've got at least one tournament I have to try and figure out how we're going to manage the new Sisters versus the old Sisters. Because you can't buy the book digital. There's no opportunity to buy it. The only way to get it was in the new box. And then if I've got people coming to a tournament as part of my players pack we write, what do we put in that? Do we say you can't use the new codex? That doesn't seem particularly fair, but you can't also turn around and penalise people who didn't get the limited book by saying you have to use the limited book, and then they say I've got a digital copy, and at that point I know it's an illegal digital copy because there's no digital copy to be had. So it's this weird sort of...
In the players pack, does it say that you have to have the codex there?
Yeah.
Well, then you've got to have the codex there.
Well, it says it doesn't specify whether it's got to be... Like, you've got to have a copy of all of the rules for your army. So Battlescribe...
Do you think they'll bring them out in a White Dwarf or something like that?
No, they'll wait for the codex in Feb.
Yeah. It's a long time, though.
It is. It seems
I'm
like a really...
surprised that they haven't done a digital download or a book by itself in time for Christmas.
I would have thought that for this release, they would have done the book at the same time. And the only reason I can think they haven't is there's going to be miniatures that they aren't ready to release yet. And whenever they release rules for new miniatures, they have to have the miniature available. Because of the...
Then why not hold off on the release?
Because they promised it in 2019.
Yeah.
So they've kept their word and gone, here's the Sisters for 2019. Here's all the snap fit kits in a big box with the codex and the cards and all the other bits and pieces.
But there's rules There's rules for models that in that codex that aren't available.
Yeah,
so
I know.
they've done what they say that they don't do.
Well, it goes back to the chapter house lawsuit from years gone by as to releasing rules for things they don't have models for. But because this is a limited release...
That becomes quite difficult as well, because what happens when people want to come to an event and play with a model that doesn't exist?
Well, and that's exactly what I'm talking about with this new codex, is you go, well, there's going to be players out there who, if you somehow get your hands on 2 or 3 of the penitent engines from the new kit and you change them to mortifiers, the parts aren't in the kit to make a mortifier, but you'll have pictures of them in the limited codex. You'll have all the rules for them in the limited codex. What do you do with that? I've actually just seen a photo today of the penitent engine old versus new.
Yeah.
That's going to be a pain in the butt because the new one is smaller.
Oh, wow.
Slimmer.
Smaller.
And on a smaller base.
I have never seen anything come out smaller.
Go backwards, no. So...
Are you sure it's actually the right model?
I'm 100% sure I've seen them side by side.
you sure it's not someone's taken a photo from
No.
a distance with one and put
No.
it on, superimposed it next
No,
to
it's
it?
on his work. He's on his workbench. It's really, really confusing now because I've gone, why would you do that? So there's a whole bunch of new issues that this codex is going to bring, which as a TO we now have to sort through, because I know players who've gone out and bought a bunch of the last chance to buy metal ones, which are now on the wrong size base and technically too big.
Well, yeah.
So
And they're not going to go on a smaller base.
No, not the way they're built, no. So they're going to have to stay on 60s. So I suppose that's an issue for another day, but at the moment it's already something that's hit my radar for January because we've got First Blood, and that box is going to be an ideal starting point to...
Well, that's what we talk about, isn't it? We talk about people who, get models... Well, armies started
around
boxes
Christmas
for Christmas and being able to bring them out and learn to play as they get, the army gets built up over our event season. And, so we kind of bill it as that type of thing, except now it's coming back to bite us.
Well, the only saving grace for that box is it is only about 500 points. So the short-term saving grace there is the only way to build it to... Obviously, you either have to buy 2 of the box, or you're having to buy parts of it off eBay to bring it up to 750 or 1,000 points.
There's ways to...
I mean, I've already seen people splitting the boxes online.
Yeah.
So adding an extra unit of sisters, adding more sister Repentiers, or adding more Penitent engines won't be an issue, as long as you're willing to fork out the money for them.
And we talked about that as a way for you to get the codex early.
Yeah, literally buying the box, keeping the box, and then selling the miniatures.
Yeah. Because people are going to be looking for them in order to increase their 500 points, but don't necessarily want to end up with multiple books.
Yeah, or data cards, and they're the bits that I'd want.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's going to be very interesting. And until I get hold of a copy of the codex, at this point, I don't even know if I've got a friend who's got one. Like, that's going to be a questionable thing altogether. I don't even know how I can prepare a player's pack for them.
I do know someone who has bought a box for their girlfriend for Christmas. So maybe we can get in touch.
If you did get a copy, I'd be keen to meet up with you just for, come bring it to Varsity and let me have a half-hour read through it. That'd be great.
So you work hard at Varsity then? You've got time to sit down for half an hour and have a read?
Oh, yeah. Once we're all set up and going, it's, it's kind of like a tournament. The first half hour is manic, the last half hour is manic, and the middle bit's kind of okay. Yeah. But anyway, we'll hopefully see you at Varsity in a couple of days' time, because by the time this airs, Varsity will be just around the corner.
Yes.
And that's our end of year event. We've kind of mentioned and talked about that in the intro, so we won't go into it again here, but we might wrap it up. Thank you very much for listening. Again, thank you to everyone who attended Masters 2019.
And that's the people who attended as players, and also the people who popped along to
check it out and say hello.
Check it out in person, and the people who joined us from far and wide on the different live streams we did.
Yep. And then hopefully going into 2020, our live streams will get a bit more stable and a bit more controllable. We're going to do our best.
Yeah, we are.
Okay, we're done. Thanks very much for listening. We'll see you for the next episode.
Happy gaming, everyone.
You've been listening to the Objective Secured podcast. If you'd like to get in touch, you can visit our website, objectivesecured.com.au. You can find us on Facebook, Facebook.com/Objective Secured, or you can email us, obsec@optusnet.com.au. Thanks for listening.